The gunshot echoed through the cathedral just as Scarlet Hayes whispered, "I do." Blood splattered across white marble. Screams erupted. Her father collapsed at her feet, clutching his chest while armed men flooded the aisles. Adrian Moretti didn't flinch. He simply tightened his grip on her trembling hand and finished the ceremony over the chaos. Because in his world, not even an assassination attempt interrupted business. This is the story of a woman sold into darkness, a man who ruled it, and the war that ignited between them. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The morning of her wedding, Scarlet Hayes stood in front of a mirror she didn't recognize, wearing a dress she never chose, preparing to marry a man she'd never loved. Her reflection stared back, hollow eyes, pale skin, hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The dress was beautiful in the way expensive things always were, silk and lace that probably cost more than her college tuition. It didn't matter. She'd have worn a burlap sack if it meant walking out of this room and never looking back, but that wasn't an option anymore. "You look stunning, sweetheart." Her father's voice cut through the silence. Thomas Hayes stood in the doorway, looking older than his 53 years. The bags under his eyes had deepened over the past month. His hands trembled slightly when he reached for his whiskey glass, a permanent fixture these days. Scarlet didn't turn around. "Don't!" "Scarlet!" "I said don't." Her voice cracked. "You don't get to call me sweetheart. You don't get to pretend this is normal." Thomas stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The click of the lock felt like a gunshot. "I know you're angry." "Angry?" Scarlet spun around, the dress swirling around her ankles. "You sold me, like I was a car you couldn't afford the payments on anymore." "I didn't have a choice." "Everyone has a choice!" The words exploded out of her. "You chose to gamble with money you didn't have. You chose to borrow from criminals. You chose to hide behind your daughter when they came to collect." Thomas's face crumpled. For a moment, she almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then she remembered the conversation 3 weeks ago, the one that shattered her entire world. "Adrian Moretti has agreed to forgive the debt," her father had said, unable to meet her eyes, "in exchange for your hand in marriage." She'd laughed. Actually laughed. Because it was so absurd. Men like Adrian Moretti, the Adrian Moretti, who owned half the city's underground and the other half's politicians, didn't marry girls like her. Girls who worked at bookstores and dreamed of graduate school. Girls who were nobody. But her father wasn't joking. "How much?" she'd asked quietly. "Scarlet, how much was I worth? I want to know the exact price of my life." $3 million. The number had knocked the air from her lungs. $3 million in debt. 3 million reasons why her father's hands shook, why men in black cars had started following her to work, why her mother's grave was the only place she felt safe anymore. "He'll kill me if I don't pay," Thomas had whispered. "He'll kill both of us." And there it was. The truth beneath the truth. Her father wasn't just selling her to save himself. He was selling her to save them both. Because Adrian Moretti didn't make threats. He made promises, and his promises always came soaked in blood. Now standing in this suffocating room, Scarlet met her father's gaze. "I'll never forgive you for this." "I know." His voice broke. "But you'll be alive." "Will I?" She turned back to the mirror. "Or will I just be breathing?" Before Thomas could answer, a knock interrupted them. The door opened, revealing a woman in her 40s, elegant, cold-eyed, wearing authority like a second skin. "It's time," the woman said. Her accent was Italian, her tone suggesting she'd said these exact words to countless brides before. "Mr. Moretti is waiting." Scarlet's stomach twisted. She'd only seen Adrian Moretti once, 3 weeks ago, when he'd come to finalize the arrangement. He'd stood in her father's study like he owned it, which technically he did now. Everything her father possessed belonged to Adrian, including her. She remembered his eyes. Dark, calculating, completely devoid of warmth. He'd looked at her the way someone might examine a painting they were considering purchasing, assessing value, nothing more. He hadn't spoken to her directly, hadn't asked her opinion, hadn't pretended this was anything other than what it was. A business transaction. "Miss Hayes," the woman's voice sharpened, "we cannot keep Mr. Moretti waiting." Scarlet wanted to scream that she didn't care, that Adrian Moretti could wait until hell froze over for all she cared, but the words died in her throat. Because standing behind the woman were two men in dark suits, hands resting casually near the guns beneath their jackets. This wasn't a request. Fine. Scarlett lifted the dress's train, surprised her hands had steadied. Maybe shock had finally overridden fear. Let's get this over with. The walk to the cathedral took 15 minutes. Scarlett sat in the back of a black Mercedes, her father beside her, both of them silent. The city passed by in a blur of gray buildings and gray sky. February in Chicago meant cold that cut straight to the bone. Fitting, she thought. Everything about this day was cold. The cathedral loomed ahead, St. Mary's, one of the oldest churches in the city. Its Gothic spires reached toward clouds that promised snow. Under different circumstances, Scarlett might have found it beautiful. Now it just looked like a very expensive cage. There are people inside, Thomas said quietly as the car slowed. Moretti's people. You need to smile, pretend this is what you want. Why? Scarlett's laugh was bitter. Everyone knows the truth, because if you embarrass him, if you make him look weak, Thomas's voice dropped. He won't hurt you, but he'll find someone else to hurt, someone I care about. The threat was clear. Play along or people she loved would suffer. Scarlett thought of her Aunt Maria, the only family she had left besides her father, thought of her best friend Jenny, of old Mr. Patterson at the bookstore who'd given her a job when she desperately needed one. Adrian Moretti's reach was long, his memory longer. I hate you, she whispered. Thomas didn't argue. I know. The car stopped. The door opened, and Scarlett stepped out into the cold. The cathedral's entrance was flanked by more men in suits. They watched her with expressions that revealed nothing. Inside she could hear organ music, traditional wedding march, completely wrong for this mockery of a ceremony. Her father offered his arm. Scarlett took it because refusing would only delay the inevitable. They walked through massive wooden doors into a space that smelled of incense and old stone. The cathedral was beautiful, vaulted ceilings, stained glass windows casting colored light across marble floors, rows of polished pews. It was also nearly empty. Maybe 30 people occupied the space meant for 300. All men, all wearing the same dark suits, all watching her with the same flat expressions. No friends, no family, no one who cared whether she lived or died. This wasn't a wedding, it was a coronation, a public claiming. At the altar stood Adrian Moretti. He was taller than she remembered. 6'3", maybe more. His suit was black, perfectly tailored, probably cost more than most cars. Dark hair swept back from a face that would have been handsome if it weren't so hard. Sharp jaw, straight nose, lips pressed into a thin line. But it was his eyes that stopped her breath. Dark brown, almost black, and completely focused on her. Not warm, not cold, just assessing, like he was calculating her worth down to the penny. The walk down the aisle felt endless. Each step echoed. The organ music swelled, completely at odds with the silence from the pews. No one whispered. No one smiled. They just watched. Scarlett forced herself to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The technique her therapist had taught her during her mother's illness. Funny how it came back now, when everything else felt like static. They reached the altar. Thomas placed her hand in Adrian's. His grip was warm, firm, possessive. You're shaking, Adrian said quietly. His voice was deeper than she remembered, with the faintest trace of an accent. Wouldn't you be? The words slipped out before she could stop them. Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, maybe. No. The priest, an elderly man who looked deeply uncomfortable, cleared his throat. Shall we begin? Adrian nodded once. The ceremony passed in a haze. Scarlett heard herself reciting vows she didn't mean to a man she didn't know. Her voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Maybe it did. Maybe the real Scarlett Hayes had died the moment her father signed her life away, and this was just a ghost going through the motions. The rings, the priest said. Adrian produced 2 bands. White gold, simple, expensive. He slid one onto Scarlett's finger. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. He'd probably had her measured without her knowledge. When it was her turn, Scarlett's hand shook so badly she nearly dropped the ring. Adrian's hand steadied hers. Not gentle, not cruel, just controlled. The ring slid onto his finger. I now pronounce you husband and wife. The priest's relief was palpable. You may kiss the bride. This was it. The moment that would seal everything. Adrian's hand came up, cupping her jaw. His thumb brushed her cheek. Scarlett's heart hammered against her ribs. She wanted to pull away, to run, to scream. The gunshot shattered the silence. Everything happened at once. Glass exploded. Someone screamed. Adrian's arm locked around Scarlett's waist, yanking her down as another shot rang out. They hit the marble floor hard, Adrian's body covering hers. More gunshots. Men shouting. The cathedral erupted into chaos. Scarlett couldn't process it. 1 second she was about to be kissed. The next, she was on the ground with a man she barely knew using his body as a shield, while bullets tore through the air above them. "Stay down," Adrian ordered. His voice hadn't changed. Still calm, still controlled. Like assassination attempts were just another Tuesday. Through the chaos, Scarlett saw her father. He was on the ground too, but not moving. Blood pooled beneath him, spreading across white marble in a growing stain. "Dad!" She tried to crawl toward him. Adrian's grip tightened, holding her in place. "Don't move." "He's hurt. He's dead." The words hit harder than the gunshots. Dead. Her father was dead. Shot during her wedding. Killed while giving her away to a monster. Scarlett's mind went blank. White noise, static, nothing. Adrian was moving, dragging her behind the altar. His men had weapons out now, returning fire. The stained glass windows shattered one by one, raining colored glass. The organ music had stopped. All Scarlett could hear was gunfire and her own ragged breathing. "How many?" Adrian called out, voice cutting through the chaos. "4 shooters," someone answered. "East windows, professional setup." "Take them." It wasn't a request, it was an execution order. Adrian's men moved with military precision. They weren't panicking, weren't afraid. This was just business. Just another day in a world Scarlett was now part of. The gunfire intensified. Then, abruptly, stopped. The silence after was deafening. "Clear," someone called out. Adrian stood, pulling Scarlett up with him. Her legs barely held her. She was shaking again, worse than before. Her dress was torn, covered in dust and debris. There was blood on her hands. She didn't know whose. "The shooters?" Adrian asked. 3 dead, 1 alive. We're moving him to the warehouse." Adrian nodded. Then, almost as an afterthought, he looked at Scarlett. Really looked at her for the first time since the shooting started. "Are you hurt?" Scarlett stared at him. Was she hurt? Her father was dead. She'd just been shot at during her wedding. She was married to a man who treated assassination attempts like minor inconveniences. Was she hurt? "I don't know," she whispered. Adrian's eyes narrowed. He examined her, clinical, methodical, checking for injuries. His hands moved over her arms, her shoulders, her sides. Not sexual, not tender, just efficient. "You're fine," he concluded. "No wounds." "My father is dead." "I already said that." The casual way he said it snapped something inside her. Scarlett pulled away from him, stumbling toward where her father lay. Thomas Hayes stared at nothing. Blood soaked his shirt, his jacket, pooling beneath him. The bullet had caught him in the chest, center mass, probably instant death. Scarlett fell to her knees beside him. She should cry, should scream, should feel something other than this vast, empty nothing. But she couldn't, because part of her, the part she didn't want to acknowledge, felt relief. Her father was dead. The man who'd sold her, who'd traded her life for his own debt, was gone. She was free of him. Except she wasn't free. She'd never be free again. "We need to leave." Adrian's voice came from behind her. More could be coming. Scarlett didn't move. "He's my father." "He's dead, and sitting here won't change that." She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was a heartless bastard. But when she looked up at Adrian Moretti, she saw something in his eyes that stopped her. Recognition. He'd seen death before, caused it, probably. This wasn't shocking to him, it was just familiar. "Come," Adrian said, extending his hand. Not a request, a command. Scarlett looked at his hand, at her father's body, at the shattered cathedral around them. She had a choice. She could stay here, clinging to a corpse, or she could stand up and face whatever came next. She took his hand. Adrian pulled her to her feet. We're going to my car. You'll stay close to me. If I tell you to move, you move. If I tell you to get down, you get down. Understand?" Scarlett nodded. They moved through the cathedral, Adrian's men forming a protective barrier around them. Scarlett caught glimpses of the carnage. Bullet holes in walls, shattered glass, at least 2 bodies that weren't her father's. The cold hit her the moment they stepped outside. Snow had started falling, soft white flakes that seemed obscene against all the blood and violence. A black SUV waited, engine running. Adrian guided her into the back seat, sliding in beside her. The door slammed, the locks engaged with a heavy click. Then they were moving. Scarlett stared out the window, watching the cathedral disappear behind them. Her father was still in there, dead, alone. She should go back, should make arrangements, should do something. But she couldn't. She was trapped in a car with a man who now owned her, driving toward a future she couldn't imagine. "Who were they?" she asked quietly. Adrian didn't look at her. Rivals. Enemies. People who thought killing me during the wedding would send a message. "They killed my father instead." Collateral damage. The casual dismissal ignited something in Scarlett. "That's all he was to you? Collateral damage? That's all he was to everyone." Adrian finally turned to face her. "Your father was a degenerate gambler who burned through $3 million he didn't have. He made deals with dangerous people and broke every promise. The only value he had left was you. So you took me. I took what was offered." "I wasn't offered. I was sold." Adrian's expression didn't change. "The end result is the same." Scarlett laughed, sharp, bitter. "You actually believe that? That there's no difference between choosing something and having it forced on you? In my world? No, there isn't." "Then your world is sick." "Yes." Adrian turned away, looking back out the window. "It is. And now it's your world too." The truth of it hit her like a physical blow. This was her life now, this violence, this coldness, this world where bullets flew during weddings and fathers died as collateral damage. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Home." "I don't have a home." "You do now." The SUV drove for another 20 minutes, leaving the city center behind. They entered a neighborhood Scarlett recognized, Lincoln Park, one of the most expensive areas in Chicago. Tree-lined streets, historic mansions, the kind of wealth that whispered instead of shouted. They pulled up to a gate, tall, iron, topped with what looked like decorative spikes, but were probably very functional security measures. The gate swung open automatically, and they drove through. The house, no, the mansion, sat back from the street, surrounded by manicured grounds. 3 stories of dark stone and large windows, beautiful, in a cold, imposing way. "This is it," Adrian said as the car stopped. "Your new home." Scarlett didn't respond. Couldn't. She was still processing the fact that her father was dead, and she was married to a stranger, and she'd been shot at, and none of this felt real. Adrian got out, came around to her side, opened the door. "Come." That word again. A command, not an invitation. Scarlett stepped out into the snow, her dress dragged in the slush. Her feet, in their delicate wedding shoes, were already going numb. They walked to the front door. It opened before they reached it. A man in his 60s, perfectly dressed, face carefully neutral. "Welcome home, Mr. Moretti, Tassia," he said with a slight Italian accent. "And congratulations on your marriage." "Thank you, Carlo." Adrian stepped inside, pulling Scarlett with him. "Have Rosa prepare the master suite and get rid of this." He gestured at Scarlett's dress. "Of course, sir." The interior was as impressive as the exterior. Marble floors, high ceilings, artwork that was probably worth more than most houses. Everything perfect, everything cold. "Carlo runs the house," Adrian explained as they walked through the foyer. "Anything you need, ask him. Rosa is the head housekeeper. She'll help you settle in." "Settle in," Scarlett repeated numbly. "Like this is normal." "It is normal. For you. Now." They climbed a grand staircase to the second floor. Adrian led her down a hallway lined with closed doors, stopping at the last one. "Our room," he said, opening it. The bedroom was enormous. King-size bed with dark sheets, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the grounds, a fireplace, sitting area, doors leading to what looked like a bathroom and closet. It was beautiful. It was a cage. The bathroom is through there, Adrian pointed. You'll find everything you need. Rosa will bring clothes. Get cleaned up. I have business to attend to. He started to leave. Wait, Scarlett heard herself say. Adrian paused. What happens now? She hated how small her voice sounded. What do you want from me? He turned back, studying her with those dark, unreadable eyes. I want you to survive, he said finally. Everything else we'll figure out later. Then he left, closing the door behind him. Scarlett stood alone in the enormous bedroom, still wearing her ruined wedding dress, covered in dust and other people's blood. She'd survived. That was something. That was more than her father could say. But as she looked around the beautiful cage she now called home, Scarlett wasn't sure survival was enough. We'll see. The hot shower helped. Not much, but enough to stop the shaking. Scarlett stood underwater hot enough to burn, watching pink-tinged streams circle the drain. Blood. Dust. The physical evidence of her wedding day washing away. If only the memories would go as easily. She didn't cry. Couldn't. The tears wouldn't come. Just that same vast emptiness where emotions should be. When she finally stepped out, she found clothes laid out on the bed. Expensive. Designer. Not her style, but they fit. Black pants, cream silk blouse, cashmere cardigan, even undergarments and shoes, all in her exact size. Adrian had been thorough in his preparation. The thought made her skin crawl. Scarlett dressed mechanically, her hands moving through familiar motions while her mind remained blank. She found herself in front of a mirror, full-length, ornate frame, and barely recognized her reflection. Wet hair plastered to her head, eyes too big and a face gone pale. The ring on her finger catching the light. Mrs. Adrian Moretti. The name felt foreign, wrong, like wearing someone else's skin. A soft knock interrupted her spiral. "Come in," Scarlett called, expecting the housekeeper. Instead, a young woman entered, mid-20s, dark hair pulled back, wearing simple black pants and a white shirt. She carried a tray with food. "Mrs. Moretti," the woman said with a slight accent. "I'm Rosa. Mr. Moretti asked me to bring you dinner. I'm not hungry." "He said you would say that." Rosa set the tray on a small table near the windows. "He also said you need to eat anyway." Scarlett bristled at the command by proxy. "And if I refuse?" Rosa's expression remained neutral. "Then I will tell Mr. Moretti you refused, and he will come speak with you himself." The implication was clear. Eat now or deal with Adrian later. Scarlett sat. The food looked good. Pasta, salad, bread. Her stomach growled despite everything. When was the last time she'd eaten? Yesterday? The day before? She picked up the fork. Rosa nodded approvingly. "Is there anything else you need?" "Freedom," Scarlett said flatly. "Besides that." The response startled a laugh from Scarlett. Bitter, but still a laugh. "No, nothing besides that." Rosa hesitated at the door. "It gets easier." "What does?" "Being here. Being his wife." She said it carefully, like the words might burn. "At first it feels impossible, but you adapt. Humans always do." "You sound like you're speaking from experience." "I am. Not as a wife, but..." Rosa glanced down the hallway. "I've been here 5 years. Mr. Moretti is demanding, but fair, in his way. Follow the rules, and you'll be fine." "And the rules are?" "Don't leave without permission. Don't contact anyone he hasn't approved. Don't ask questions about his business." Rosa ticked them off on her fingers. "And don't try to run." "What happens if I do?" Rosa's expression went carefully blank. "I don't know. No one's ever succeeded." She left before Scarlett could ask what happened to those who failed. Alone again, Scarlett forced herself to eat. The pasta was good. Homemade, probably. Each bite felt like swallowing stones. But Rosa was right. She needed to eat. Needed to keep her strength up. Because even though she didn't know what came next, she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She was going to fight. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But somehow, some way, she would find a way out of this. Adrian Moretti might have bought her father's debt, might have forced her into marriage, might have trapped her in this beautiful house with armed guards and locked gates, but he didn't own her soul. That she would keep. The defiance felt good, like finding solid ground after drowning. Scarlett finished eating and stood, walking to the windows. The ground stretched out below, perfectly manicured lawns, bare trees, high walls. Even the view was a cage. She was testing the window lock when the door opened again. Adrian stood in the doorway, still wearing his wedding suit, though he'd removed the jacket and tie. His shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked tired. Human, almost. "You ate," he observed. "Your spy told you. Rosa isn't a spy, she's staff. Same difference in this house, I'm guessing." Adrian's lips twitched, almost a smile. "You're not wrong." He stepped inside, closing the door. The click of the lock made Scarlett's heart rate spike. They were alone, in a bedroom, on their wedding night. "Don't," she said quickly. Adrian raised an eyebrow. "Don't what?" "Whatever you're thinking, don't." "I'm thinking," Adrian said slowly, "that we need to establish some ground rules. Rosa already told me, don't leave, don't contact anyone, don't run. Those are safety rules, I mean between us." Scarlett's hands clenched into fists. "If you think I'm going to—" "I don't expect sex," Adrian interrupted. "Not tonight. Not until you're ready." The words surprised her into silence. Adrian continued, his voice matter of fact. "This marriage is business, political. It solidifies certain alliances and neutralizes certain threats. What happens in this bedroom is separate from that." "So you're saying I have a choice?" "In this?" "Yes." "How generous." The sarcasm dripped heavy. "You force me to marry you, but I get to choose when you rape me." Adrian's expression hardened. "I don't rape. You just buy women. I made a deal with your father. He agreed. That makes it legal." "Legal isn't the same as right." "No," Adrian agreed. "It isn't, but it's what we have." He moved to the bed, sitting on the edge, not crowding her, but close enough that Scarlett couldn't ignore his presence. "I know you hate me," Adrian said. "I know you think I'm a monster. You're probably right. But we're married now, and that means we need to find a way to coexist." "Coexist," Scarlett repeated, "like roommates. If that works for you—" "Nothing about this works for me." "Then make it work." Adrian's voice sharpened. "Because this is your reality now. You can fight it, hate it, rage against it all you want. But it won't change. I won't change. So you need to decide. Do you want to be miserable every day for the rest of your life? Or do you want to adapt?" "Adapt," Scarlett spat the word. "You mean surrender." "I mean survive." There was that word again. Survival. Like it was the highest aspiration she could have. "What if I don't want to just survive?" Scarlett challenged. "What if I want more than that?" Adrian studied her for a long moment. "Then earn it." "How?" "Prove you're more than just your father's debt." He stood, moving toward the door. "Prove you're worth keeping alive for reasons beyond a business deal." The words should have stung, should have made her angry. Instead, they lit something inside her, a challenge, a goal. "Where are you going?" she asked. "To deal with the man who tried to kill me today." Adrian paused at the door. "I'll be back late. Don't wait up." "Wait." Scarlett didn't know why she stopped him. "The shooters. Who were they?" "Enemies. I have many. Will there be more?" "Attempts on my life? Almost certainly." "And me? Am I a target now too?" Adrian considered this question. "You're my wife. That makes you both a target and a shield. Some will try to hurt me. Others will protect you because losing you would make me vulnerable." "Comforting," Scarlett muttered. "It's the truth. Would you prefer I lie?" "I'd prefer you let me go." "That's not an option." "Why not?" "You said this was business. My father's dead. The debt died with him." "The debt, yes. But the alliance I built through this marriage, that remains." Adrian opened the door. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we'll discuss your new role." "My role?" "As my wife. There are expectations, events you'll need to attend, people you'll need to meet." His eyes glinted with something that might have been amusement. "Welcome to the family business, Mrs. Moretti." He left. Scarlett stood alone in the bedroom, Adrian's words echoing. "Prove you're worth keeping alive." Fine. She would. Not because she wanted to please him, not because she accepted this twisted situation, but because survival was just the first step. And once she survived, then she'd figure out how to escape. Scarlett changed into the pajamas someone had left out for her. Silk, expensive, uncomfortable in their luxury. She climbed into the massive bed, feeling swallowed by expensive sheets that smelled like lavender and money. Sleep wouldn't come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her father's body, heard gunshots, felt Adrian's arm locking around her, pulling her to safety while bullets flew. He'd protected her. That thought kept circling. During the shooting, Adrian could have left her there, could have saved himself. Instead, he'd used his body as a shield. Why? Because she was valuable. An asset. His wife, bought and paid for. The thought should have disgusted her, did disgust her. But it also meant something important. Adrian wanted her alive. That gave her leverage, however small. Around midnight, she heard footsteps in the hallway. The door opened quietly. Adrian slipped in, moving with surprising silence for such a large man. Scarlett kept her eyes closed, her breathing even, pretending to sleep. She heard him move through the room, water running in the bathroom, clothes rustling. Then the bed shifted as he climbed in on the far side. He stayed on his side. Didn't touch her, didn't try anything, just slept. Scarlett waited until his breathing evened out. Then she opened her eyes, turning slightly to look at him in the darkness. Adrian Moretti, feared crime lord, sleeping peacefully beside her. In the dim light from the windows, he looked younger, less harsh, almost ordinary. But she knew better, had seen the coldness in his eyes, the casual way he discussed murder and debt and collateral damage. This man was dangerous, a monster, like she'd said, and now she was bound to him, legally, completely. The ring on her finger felt heavy. Scarlett turned away, facing the windows. Outside, snow continued to fall, silent, white, covering everything in a pristine blanket that hid all the ugly truth beneath. Tomorrow, she would start figuring out this new life, learning the rules, finding the cracks. Tonight, she just needed to make it through. She closed her eyes and eventually slept. Scarlett woke to find the bed empty and sunlight streaming through windows she'd forgotten to cover. For one blissful moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then reality crashed down like cold water. Married, trapped, her father dead. She sat up, muscles aching from tension she'd carried through the night. The clock on the nightstand read 9:47 a.m. She'd slept later than intended, though sleep felt like the wrong word for the restless hours she'd spent drifting between consciousness and nightmares. The bedroom door opened without a knock. Rosa entered carrying another tray, this one with coffee and what looked like breakfast. "Good morning, Mrs. Moretti?" The title still sounded wrong. "Mr. Moretti asked me to let you sleep, but he wants to see you at 11. I brought coffee." Scarlett's stomach rebelled at the thought of food, but the coffee smelled like salvation. "Where is he?" "In his office. He's been working since 6. Rosa set the tray down, then moved to the closet. "I've prepared clothes for you. Mr. Moretti has specific expectations for how you should present yourself." "Of course he does." Scarlett took the coffee cup, wrapping both hands around its warmth. "Let me guess. Nothing too revealing, nothing too casual, nothing that might embarrass him." Rosa's silence was answer enough. The clothes laid out were exactly what Scarlett expected. Conservative, expensive, a charcoal gray dress that probably cost more than a month's rent at her old apartment, heels that matched, jewelry that was tasteful but clearly marked her as someone's wife, someone's property. "I'll help you get ready," Rosa offered. "I can dress myself." "I know, but Mr. Moretti prefers—" "I don't care what Mr. Moretti prefers." Scarlett's voice came out sharper than intended. "I'm not a doll." Rosa's expression flickered with something that might have been sympathy. "No, but you are his wife. And in this house, that means playing a role." "What if I refuse?" "Then you'll meet with him wearing whatever you choose, and he'll decide whether it's worth fighting about." Rosa moved toward the door. "But I've been here 5 years, Mrs. Moretti. Pick your battles. Save your energy for the ones that matter." After Rosa left, Scarlett stared at the carefully curated outfit. Every instinct screamed to wear something else. Jeans, a t-shirt, anything that was hers, not his. But Rosa's words echoed. Pick your battles. Fine. She'd wear the dress. For now. But on her terms. Scarlett showered quickly, letting hot water chase away the remnants of nightmares. She dressed in the prescribed outfit, but left her hair down instead of styled. Wore less makeup than Rosa had probably intended. Small rebellions, maybe childish, but they were hers. At 10:55, she left the bedroom. The house was quieter during the day, but she could hear distant sounds, voices, movement. The house wasn't empty, just carefully controlled. She found Adrian's office on the first floor, guided by Carlo, who appeared seemingly from nowhere when she descended the stairs. The older man knocked once, then opened the door without waiting for a response. "Mrs. Moretti, sir." Adrian sat behind a massive desk, papers spread before him, laptop open, phone to his ear. He glanced up when she entered, his expression unreadable, then gestured to a chair across from him while continuing his conversation. "I don't care what Sal thinks," Adrian said into the phone, his voice cold. He had his chance. Now he deals with the consequences. A pause. No negotiations. Make it clear. If he steps out of line again, it's not a warning next time. He hung up without saying goodbye, setting the phone down with deliberate care. "Sit." Scarlett remained standing. "I'm not a dog." "I didn't say you were. But we need to talk, and you standing there trying to prove a point is wasting both our time." She sat. Small victory to him, but she was learning to calculate. Adrian leaned back in his chair, studying her with those dark eyes that seemed to catalog everything. "You didn't style your hair. Rosa didn't say I had to." "She shouldn't have to. You're smart enough to understand expectations. And you're controlling enough to dictate hairstyles." Scarlett met his gaze. "We both know what we're dealing with." Something that might have been amusement crossed Adrian's face. "Fair enough." He closed the laptop, giving her his full attention. "How did you sleep? How do you think?" "Badly, probably. Nightmares about your father, about the shooting, about being trapped here." The accuracy startled her. "You sound like you're speaking from experience." "I am. The first time you see someone die violently, it stays with you." Adrian stood, moving to a sideboard where crystal decanters held amber liquid. He poured 2 glasses. "The first time you cause it, even more so." He offered her one. Scarlett took it, though she had no intention of drinking. The glass was heavy, expensive. Everything in this house was expensive. Adrian returned to his desk but didn't sit. Instead, he perched on the edge, closer to her now, but not crowding. "We need to discuss your role here." "As your captive wife?" "As my wife, yes. Captive is your word, not mine." "What would you call it?" "An arrangement." He sipped his drink. "One that serves both our interests." "My interests?" Scarlett couldn't help the bitter laugh. "Please enlighten me. How does this serve my interests?" "You're alive, protected, financially secure for life." Adrian counted on his fingers. "You have access to resources most people only dream of. A position of power, if you choose to use it." "I'd rather have freedom." "Freedom is an illusion. Everyone serves someone, works for someone, answers to someone." He swirled the liquor in his glass. "At least here, you know exactly where you stand. At the bottom, under your control. Beside me, actually, if you're smart." Scarlett frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" Adrian set down his glass and picked up a folder from his desk. He handed it to her. "Open it." Inside were photographs, events, galas, business dinners. In each one, a different woman stood beside Adrian, beautiful, poised, perfect. And in each photo, Adrian looked at them the same way he looked at furniture. Useful, temporary, forgettable. "My previous arrangements," Adrian explained. "Women who understood their role was decorative. They smiled, looked pretty, asked no questions. And when their usefulness ended, they were compensated and dismissed." "How romantic," Scarlett muttered, but her hands trembled slightly holding the photos. "I'm not offering romance. I'm offering reality." Adrian took the folder back. "You could be like them. Play the silent, pretty wife, attend events, smile on command, ask nothing. It would be easier, probably, safer." But I don't think that's who you are." He studied her face. "You argued with me within minutes of meeting. You challenged me at our wedding. You're wearing the dress Rosa laid out, but you left your hair down and wore less makeup. Small rebellions calculated to test boundaries without crossing lines you can't come back from." Scarlett's stomach tightened. He'd noticed. Of course he had. "You're not submissive by nature," Adrian continued. "You're smart, observant, and angry. All things I can work with, if you're willing. Work with how? I need a wife who can think, who can handle herself in difficult situations, who won't fold under pressure. He leaned forward slightly. Last night during the shooting, you didn't scream, didn't panic. You tried to reach your father despite the danger. That takes courage. Or stupidity, but I'm betting on courage. What do you want from me? Scarlett asked quietly. I want you to learn this world, understand it, become part of it, not just decoration. Adrian's voice was matter-of-fact, like he was discussing a business merger. There are people I need to meet with, deals I need to make, alliances I need to maintain. Having a wife who can navigate those situations intelligently is valuable. So I'm supposed to be your business partner now? No, you're supposed to be my wife. But that role doesn't have to be passive. Scarlett turned the idea over in her mind. He was offering her something, though she wasn't sure what. Power? Agency? Or just a longer leash with the illusion of choice? And if I refuse, she asked, if I choose to be decorative and silent, then that's what you'll be. And honestly, it would be simpler for both of us. Adrian picked up his phone, checking something. But you'd be wasting your potential, and I don't like waste. How generous, caring about my potential. I care about assets performing to their full capability. You're an asset now, whether you like it or not. He looked up from his phone. The question is whether you want to be a depreciating one or an appreciating one. The clinical way he discussed her should have been offensive. Was offensive. But there was also a strange honesty to it. No pretty lies about caring for her, or this being anything other than business. What would learning this world entail? Scarlett asked carefully. Attending events with me. Meeting the families I work with. Understanding the power structures and alliances. Eventually handling certain social obligations on my behalf. Adrian stood, moving back behind his desk. You'd have Carlo teach you about the major players. Rosa can help with the social expectations. And I'd expect you to observe, learn, and keep your mouth shut until you understand what you're seeing. Sounds thrilling. It's survival, which is what you wanted, isn't it? Scarlett thought about the alternative. Sitting in this house, decorative and silent, slowly going crazy from boredom and captivity. At least this offered something. Information, access, a way to understand the cage she was in. Fine, she said. I'll learn. Good. Adrian pulled out his phone again, typing something. We have a dinner tonight, 7 p.m., family gathering at my uncle's restaurant. You'll meet the core members of the organization. Tonight? That's not much notice. You'll manage. He glanced up. Wear something appropriate. Rosa will help. And Scarlett? He waited until she met his eyes. These people are dangerous. Smile, be polite, and speak only when directly addressed. Understood? I'm not an idiot. No, but you're naive about this world. These men have killed for less than disrespect. His voice hardened. I'm giving you an opportunity. Don't waste it by getting yourself hurt. The threat, or warning, she couldn't tell which, hung in the air. Anything else? Scarlett asked. Yes. Your friend Jenny called the house this morning. Scarlett's heart jumped. What did you tell her? Nothing. Rosa took the message. Adrian handed her a slip of paper with a phone number. You can call her back, but you'll do it from my office phone, and you'll tell her you're fine, the wedding went well, and you're on your honeymoon. Nothing about what actually happened. You want me to lie to my best friend? I want you to protect her. And yourself. Adrian's expression was implacable. If she knows the truth, she becomes a liability. People who are liabilities in my world don't stay safe for long. The implication chilled her. You'd hurt her? I wouldn't have to. My enemies would do it for me if they thought she knew something valuable. He gestured to the phone on his desk. Call her, now, while I'm here. Keep it brief and believable. Scarlett wanted to refuse, wanted to scream at him for controlling even this, but Jenny's safety mattered more than her pride. She picked up the desk phone, dialing the number with shaking fingers. 3 rings. Then Jenny's voice, bright and concerned. Hello? Hey, Jen, it's me. Scarlett! Oh my God, I've been trying to reach you for days. Are you okay? Your phone's been going straight to voicemail, and I heard... Jenny stopped abruptly. Wait, where are you calling from? This isn't your number. I'm fine, we're just... The wedding happened, and we left for our honeymoon right after. The lies tasted bitter. Adrian surprised me with a trip. We're at his family's place in the mountains. No cell service. Honeymoon. Jenny's voice was flat. Right, because everything about this is totally normal and not terrifying at all. Jen, don't. I know you, Scarlett. I know you didn't want this. Your dad forced you into it to pay off his debts, and now you're married to a... She lowered her voice. To someone dangerous. Scarlett glanced at Adrian. He was watching her, expression neutral, but she knew he could hear every word. I'm okay, Scarlett said firmly. Really? It's not what I expected, but I'm safe and I'm fine. Are you? Or are you just saying that because he's listening? Too perceptive. Jenny had always been too perceptive. I'm saying it because it's true. Scarlett forced brightness into her tone. Look, I can't talk long. We're about to head out for dinner, but I wanted you to know I'm alive and everything's fine. Silence on the other end. Then, quietly, if you need help, any kind of help, you know I'm here. Right? Tears burned Scarlett's eyes. I know, thank you. Call me when you can. The real you, not this fake honeymoon version. I will, I promise. She hung up before her voice could crack. Adrian said nothing for a long moment. Then, she's loyal. Yes. That's good. Loyalty is rare. He stood, moving toward the door. But it also makes her vulnerable. Remember that. Is that a threat? It's a fact. In my world, the people you love become leverage. Adrian paused at the door. The less she knows, the safer she is. Keep that in mind next time you're tempted to confide in her. He left, closing the door behind him. Scarlett sat alone in his office, staring at the phone. She'd just lied to her best friend, protected Adrian's secrets, played her role exactly as instructed. The cage was getting smaller, and she was learning to move within it. The rest of the day passed in preparation. Rosa appeared with multiple dress options for the evening, each more formal than the last. They settled on a deep navy dress, elegant but not flashy, paired with simple jewelry that probably cost more than Scarlett's old car. You'll do fine, Rosa assured her while helping with her hair. Just remember, smile, be polite, let the men talk. Don't interrupt. Don't offer opinions unless specifically asked. So basically be invisible. Be pleasant. There's a difference. Rosa met her eyes in the mirror. These men respect strength, but they hate defiance. Learn where the line is. And if I cross it? Rosa's hand stilled. Then pray Mr. Moretti is in a forgiving mood. At 6:45, Scarlett descended the stairs to find Adrian waiting in the foyer. He'd changed into a dark suit, crisp white shirt, no tie. He looked every inch the powerful man he was, confident, controlled, dangerous. His eyes swept over her, assessing. Good, you look appropriate. High praise, Scarlett muttered. It is, actually. He offered his arm. Shall we? The restaurant was in Little Italy, tucked between buildings that looked older than the city itself. No sign announced its name, just a black door with a small brass number. Adrian knocked once. The door opened immediately, revealing a man built like a wall with a scar running down his left cheek. Mr. Moretti. The man stepped aside. They're waiting for you upstairs. Inside, the restaurant was dimly lit, smelling of garlic and wine and old wood. A few tables occupied the main floor, but Adrian led her past them to a narrow staircase. Private dining room, he explained quietly. We meet here once a month, discuss business, resolve disputes, make decisions. And you're bringing me because? Because you're my wife now. They need to see you, understand what you represent. Which is what exactly? Adrian paused at the top of the stairs, turning to face her. Legitimacy, stability. A man who marries is a man who's planning for the future, not just reacting to the present. His hand settled on her lower back, possessive but not aggressive. You make me look settled, less impulsive. That's valuable. Before Scarlett could respond, he opened the door to the private room. 8 men sat around a long table, wine glasses in hand, plates of food before them. Conversation stopped when Adrian entered. Every eye turned to assess the woman beside him. Gentlemen, Adrian said smoothly, my wife, Scarlett. The oldest man at the table stood. He had to be in his 70s, white hair, sharp eyes that missed nothing. Adrian, about time you brought her to meet us. He extended a hand to Scarlett. I'm Salvatore Moretti, Adrian's uncle. Scarlett shook his hand. His grip was firm, testing. It's nice to meet you. Sit, sit. Salvatore gestured to empty chairs. We were just discussing the unfortunate incident at your wedding. Adrian guided Scarlett to a seat beside him, his hand briefly squeezing her shoulder. A warning or reassurance she couldn't tell. Unfortunate is one word for it, said a man across the table. Younger, maybe 40, with slicked back hair and a gold watch that caught the light. 4 shooters during a church ceremony. That's bold. It's disrespectful, another man added, this one with a thick accent. Shooting at a wedding. There are rules. Rules. Adrian's voice cut through the murmuring. Rules only matter when people fear the consequences of breaking them. Clearly, whoever sent those shooters didn't fear us enough. Do we know who sent them? Salvatore asked. We will. Adrian's tone left no room for doubt. The one we took alive is being encouraged to share. Scarlett's stomach turned. She knew what that meant. Torture. Probably happening right now, in some basement or warehouse, while they sat here eating pasta and drinking wine. And when you find out? The man with the gold watch pressed. Then we respond appropriately. Adrian took a sip of wine. But let's not discuss business in front of my wife. She's just getting acclimated to our world. All eyes turned to Scarlett again. She felt like a specimen under glass. How are you adjusting, dear? Salvatore asked, his tone almost grandfatherly. It must be quite a change. It is, Scarlett said carefully, remembering Adrian's instructions. Be polite. Speak when addressed. But everyone has been very welcoming. Your father, the accented man said. Thomas Hayes, I knew him. Terrible thing, what happened. Scarlett's hands clenched in her lap. Yes, terrible. He owed money all over the city, the man continued, oblivious to her tension. Not just to Adrian, to me, to Sal, to half the families here. But Adrian, he was smart. Saw an opportunity where others just saw bad debt. Marco. Adrian's voice carried a warning. What? It's true, Marco shrugged. The girl should know. Her father was a degenerate gambler who got what was coming to him. Marco. This time, it wasn't a warning, it was a command. The man fell silent, but the damage was done. Scarlett felt every eye on her, watching for her reaction, testing her. She forced her expression to remain neutral. My father made mistakes. I'm aware of that. Mistakes, Salvatore chuckled. Diplomatic answer. You're smarter than you look. Thank you, Scarlett said, though she wasn't sure it was a compliment. The conversation moved on, flowing around her. Business talk, carefully vague but clear enough. Shipments, territories, percentages. Money changing hands through channels Scarlett didn't fully understand. She stayed quiet, watching, learning. These men were careful with their words, but their body language told stories. Who deferred to whom? Who challenged? Who was afraid? And at the center of it all sat Adrian. Not the oldest, not the loudest, but clearly the most dangerous. Men who argued with others went quiet when he spoke. Challenges died when he met them with that flat, dark stare. This was his world, and now it was hers too. Your wife is quiet, Marco observed after the plates were cleared. Does she speak? When she has something worth saying, Adrian replied. And does she? Marco leaned forward, grinning. Come on, Scarlett, tell us. What do you think of all this? Your new life? It was a test. Scarlett could feel it. Everyone watching, waiting to see if she'd break, if she'd cry, if she'd crack under the pressure. She met Marco's eyes. I think I have a lot to learn. Diplomatic again, Marco laughed. Adrian, you picked well. Beautiful and smart enough to know when to keep her mouth shut. Careful, Marco, another man said. That almost sounded like appreciation. You trying to poach Adrian's wife. I'm trying to compliment his taste. Marco raised his glass. To the happy couple. May your marriage be long and profitable. The others raised their glasses. Scarlett did too, though the wine tasted like ash. The dinner dragged on for another hour. Eventually, men started leaving, business to attend to, other obligations. Salvatore was the last to go, clasping Adrian's shoulder. Walk with me, he said. Not a request. Adrian glanced at Scarlett. Wait here. He followed his uncle out, leaving Scarlett alone in the private dining room. She stood, moving to the window overlooking the street below. People walked by, normal lives, unaware of what happened in rooms like this. She pressed her forehead against the cool glass, letting herself feel everything she'd suppressed during dinner. Anger, fear, disgust. The way those men had talked about her father, like he was garbage. The way they'd looked at her, like she was property. "You did well tonight." Scarlett spun. Adrian stood in the doorway, watching her. "How long have you been standing there?" "Long enough." He stepped inside, closing the door. "You handled Marco perfectly, didn't rise to the bait, stayed calm." "What was I supposed to do, cry, scream?" Scarlett crossed her arms. "Would that have made you happy?" "No, but it would have made them lose respect for me." Adrian moved closer. "You represent me now. Your weakness becomes my weakness. Your strength, my strength. So I'm just an extension of you. In their eyes?" "Yes." He stopped a few feet away. "In mine? You're learning to survive. That's more than most people manage." "The bar is so low I'm tripping over it," Scarlett muttered. Adrian's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Come on, let's go home." Home. The word felt strange. That house wasn't home. Would never be home. But she followed him anyway, because what choice did she have? The drive back was silent. Scarlett stared out the window, watching the city pass by. Lights, movement, freedom, just out of reach. "What did your uncle want?" she asked finally. "To make sure I knew what I was doing. Marrying you changes things. Makes me look more stable, but also potentially more vulnerable." Adrian's hands were steady on the wheel. He wanted reassurance that you wouldn't become a problem. "And what did you tell him?" "That you understood your role." "Do I?" Adrian glanced at her. "You're starting to." Back at the house, Scarlett headed straight for the bedroom. She needed to be alone, needed to process everything without Adrian's presence looming over her. But when she reached the top of the stairs, she heard voices, angry voices coming from Adrian's office. She should keep walking, should mind her own business. Instead, she crept closer. "Can't keep her in the dark forever," an unfamiliar voice was saying. "She's going to figure it out. She doesn't need to know." Adrian's voice, hard as steel. "The less she knows, the safer she is." Safer for who? Her or you? Both. Scarlett pressed closer to the door, barely breathing. What happens when she finds out you're the one who ordered the hit on her father? The words hit like a physical blow. Scarlett's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp. "She won't find out," Adrian said coldly, "because no one is going to tell her. Understood?" "Adrian, understood?" "Yes." "Fine." "Understood." Footsteps approached the door. Scarlett ran, barely making it to the bedroom before the office door opened. She closed the bedroom door as quietly as possible, then collapsed against it, heart hammering. Adrian had killed her father, not the shooters at the wedding. Adrian. He'd ordered it, planned it. The shooting wasn't random, it was execution, and she'd married the man who'd murdered her father. Scarlett stood frozen against the bedroom door, her mind spinning in circles that went nowhere and everywhere at once. Adrian had killed her father. The words repeated like a drumbeat, each repetition driving the truth deeper into her chest until she couldn't breathe around it. She'd known her father was flawed, a gambler, a coward, a man who'd traded his daughter to save his own skin. But he was still her father, the man who'd taught her to ride a bike, who'd held her when her mother died, who'd been broken and weak and human, and Adrian had executed him. The bedroom door opened. Scarlett stumbled forward, barely catching herself on the edge of the bed. Adrian stepped inside, his expression neutral as he loosened his tie. "You should be asleep." "I couldn't sleep." The lie came easier than it should have. Too much on my mind. He studied her for a moment, those dark eyes searching for something. Scarlett forced herself to meet his gaze, to keep her face blank, her breathing steady. If he suspected she knew, if he thought she'd overheard. "The dinner was overwhelming," Adrian said finally, accepting her explanation. "It gets easier." "Does it?" "Eventually, or you get better at pretending it doesn't bother you." He shrugged out of his jacket, draping it over a chair. Same end result. Scarlett watched him move through the room with casual confidence. This man who'd murdered her father and then married her over his corpse. Her hands itched to grab something, anything, to hurt him the way he'd hurt her. But she was unarmed, untrained, and he was neither. "I'm going to shower," Adrian said, heading toward the bathroom. "Don't wait up." The moment he closed the bathroom door, Scarlett moved. She had maybe 10 minutes while he showered. 10 minutes to figure out what to do with this information. She couldn't confront him. He'd either deny it or justify it, and either way she'd have shown her hand. Couldn't run. The guards outside would stop her before she reached the gate. Couldn't call for help because who would believe her? Who would care that a crime lord had killed a degenerate gambler? The water started running. Scarlett's eyes landed on Adrian's phone sitting on the nightstand. He'd been typing something earlier, something that made his jaw tighten. Maybe there was evidence there, proof she could use. Her hand reached for it before she could think better of it. The screen lit up, showing a lock code requirement. Of course. Nothing was ever easy. She set it down, heart hammering. Think. There had to be something, some way to... A folder caught her eye. Leather, expensive, sitting on Adrian's side of the bed. The same folder he'd shown her that morning with photos of his previous arrangements. But there were other papers inside. She'd seen them when he'd handed it to her. Scarlett grabbed it, flipping through quickly. Business documents, contracts. Nothing about her father. She was about to close it when a newspaper clipping fell out, dated 3 weeks before the wedding. The headline read, "Local businessman Thomas Hayes missing after alleged debt default." Missing, not dead. Missing. Scarlett's hand shook as she read the article. Her father had disappeared 2 days before Adrian proposed the marriage arrangement. The police had investigated briefly but found nothing. No body, no evidence of foul play. Just a man with gambling debts who'd vanished. But he hadn't vanished. He'd been at the wedding, alive, had given her away. Unless the water shut off. Scarlett shoved the clipping back into the folder, replacing it exactly where she'd found it. She was sitting on the bed, hands folded in her lap, when Adrian emerged from the bathroom wearing only sleep pants, his chest bare. "You're still awake?" he observed. "Told you, can't sleep." Adrian moved to his side of the bed, sliding under the covers. "Take something if you need to. Rosa can get you sleeping pills." "I don't need pills." "Suit yourself." He turned off his bedside lamp, plunging his side of the room into darkness. "But I have early meetings tomorrow. Try not to toss and turn all night." Scarlett waited until his breathing evened out before allowing herself to think. The newspaper article changed things. Her father had been missing before the wedding, which meant either he'd been in hiding or Adrian had been holding him somewhere. Either way, the shooting at the wedding might not have been the first attempt on his life. Maybe her father had come to the wedding already knowing he was going to die. Maybe that's why he'd looked so broken, so defeated. The thought made her stomach turn. She slid out of bed quietly, moving to the windows. Outside, the grounds were dark except for strategic lights along the perimeter. Guards patrolled in pairs, their paths carefully timed. She'd been watching them for 3 nights now, learning their patterns without really knowing why. Now she knew. Some part of her had been preparing for this moment, for the moment she'd need to escape, but escape to where? The man who'd forced her into this marriage was dead. The debt he'd accumulated was paid through her. She had no money, no resources, no safe place to run. Adrian's reach extended across the city, maybe further, and if she ran, if she tried to expose him, she'd be the one who looked crazy. The traumatized wife making accusations against her powerful husband. No, running wasn't the answer. Not yet. She needed information first, evidence, something concrete she could use. Scarlett returned to bed, her mind working through possibilities. Adrian had given her access to learn his world, to meet his associates, to understand the power structures. He thought he was training her to be useful, but he was actually giving her the tools to hurt him. She just had to be patient, smart, careful, and eventually she'd find a way to make him pay. Morning came too soon. Scarlett had barely slept, her mind churning through plans and discarding them just as quickly. When she finally dragged herself out of bed, Adrian was already gone, his side of the bed cold. Rosa appeared with breakfast and clothes, her routine efficient and unobtrusive. "Mr. Moretti left word that you have the day free. No obligations until dinner tonight." "Another dinner?" Scarlett's stomach sank. "Yes. At the house this time." He's hosting business associates. Rosa hesitated. He asked that you join them for cocktails beforehand, make small talk, be visible. Be decoration, in other words. The thought rankled, but Scarlett forced a smile. Of course. What should I wear? They went through the motions of selecting an outfit, doing her hair and makeup. Scarlett played the role of compliant wife while her mind worked through other problems. If Adrian was hosting at the house, that meant his office would be occupied during dinner. But before dinner, while he was preparing, Mrs. Moretti? Rosa's voice cut through her thoughts. Are you all right? You seem distracted. Just tired. Didn't sleep well. The first few weeks are always hardest. Rosa's tone held sympathy. Your whole life has changed. It's normal to struggle with that. Is it normal to feel like you're drowning? The words slipped out before Scarlett could stop them. Rosa's hand stilled in her hair. Yes, Rosa said quietly. That's exactly how it feels. Like you're underwater and everyone expects you to smile and wave while you're struggling to breathe. Scarlett met Rosa's eyes in the mirror. How long until the drowning stops? It doesn't. You just learn to swim. The honesty surprised her. And if I can't learn? Then you go under. And trust me, Mrs. Moretti, you don't want that. Rosa resumed fixing her hair, her voice dropping lower. Whatever you're thinking about doing, running, fighting, telling someone, don't. Not yet. Not until you understand what you're up against. Scarlett's pulse quickened. What do you mean? I mean, Mr. Moretti isn't the worst man in this world. He's hard, cold, sometimes cruel. But there are worse men in his circle. Men who would hurt you for sport. Rosa's hands were gentle, but her words were steel. You're safe here as long as you're useful. The moment you become a problem, that changes. So I should just accept it? Let him control everything? I'm saying pick your battles. Learn the rules before you break them. Rosa stepped back, her work complete. You're smart, Mrs. Moretti. Use that. Be smarter than he expects. After Rosa left, Scarlett sat in the quiet bedroom, turning over the conversation. Rosa knew something, had seen something, maybe even survived something similar. The question was whether Rosa was warning her or threatening her. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Carlo stood in the doorway, his expression carefully neutral. Mrs. Moretti, Mr. Moretti asked me to begin your education today, if you're available. The sudden shift caught her off guard. Education in what? The families, the power structures, the history of how things operate here. Carlo clasped his hands behind his back. Mr. Moretti believes you'll be more effective if you understand the landscape. More effective, more useful, always about utility with Adrian. Fine, Scarlett said. Where do we start? Carlo led her to a library on the second floor that Scarlett hadn't known existed. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined 3 walls filled with leather-bound volumes. A large table dominated the center, and on it sat several folders. Please sit. Carlo gestured to a chair. We'll begin with the 5 families. For the next 3 hours, Carlo walked her through a world she'd never imagined. The families weren't just criminal organizations. They were businesses, political entities, social structures that controlled everything from construction contracts to police precincts. Each family had territory, specialties, alliances. The Morettis controlled the ports and import operations. The Russos handled gambling and entertainment. The Costellos ran protection and enforcement. The Bianchis managed political connections and legal operations. The Salvatores oversaw distribution and street-level operations. And they all work together? Scarlett asked, struggling to keep track. They cooperate when it benefits them, compete when it doesn't. Carlo opened one of the folders showing her photographs. These are the heads of each family, men you need to recognize. Scarlett studied the faces. Most were older men, 50s and 60s, but a few were younger, around Adrian's age. That's Luca Russo. Carlo pointed to a handsome man with cold eyes. He took over the Russo family 5 years ago when his father was killed. He and Mr. Moretti have an understanding, but not trust. What's the difference? Understanding means they won't actively try to destroy each other. Trust would mean they'd protect each other's backs. Carlo moved to another photo. This is Vincent Costello. Dangerous man, violent. Mr. Moretti keeps distance but maintains civility. Name after name, face after face. Scarlett tried to commit them to memory, knowing this information might matter someday. "Why are you telling me this way?" she asked when they paused for water. "Adrian said I should observe and stay quiet. This seems like more than that." Carlo considered his answer carefully. "Mr. Moretti asked me to educate you. How I interpret that request is my decision." He met her eyes. "You're intelligent, Mrs. Moretti. Wasting that intelligence on simply looking pretty would be a shame. You think I can actually be useful? I think you already are, whether you realize it or not." Carlo closed the folders. "Your presence stabilizes Mr. Moretti in the eyes of the other families, makes him look settled. But more than that, you're an unknown variable. No one knows what you're capable of yet." "Including me," Scarlett muttered. "Then perhaps it's time to find out." They continued for another hour before Carlo declared her done for the day. Scarlett's head swam with information, names, territories, alliances, old grudges, and new agreements. It was overwhelming and exhausting and exactly what she needed. Because knowledge was power, and right now, power was the only weapon she had. She spent the rest of the afternoon in the library, reviewing the folders on her own. Carlo had left them, either trusting her or testing her. Scarlett read everything, absorbing details about shipments and percentages and power plays. In one folder, she found financial records, transactions, money moving through shell corporations, and offshore accounts. The numbers were staggering, millions of dollars flowing through channels designed to hide their origin and destination. And there, buried in the middle of a spreadsheet, was her father's name. Thomas Hayes, $3 million, marked as paid in full the day of the wedding. Her hands trembled as she stared at the notation. Paid in full. Like he was a bill. Like his life had been reduced to numbers in a ledger. "Find something interesting?" Scarlett jumped, nearly knocking over the folder. Adrian stood in the doorway, still wearing his work clothes, tie loosened. "You're back early," she managed. "Meeting's finished." He moved into the room, his eyes dropping to the open folders. "Carlo's been thorough, I see." He was very helpful. Scarlett closed the financial folder, but not before Adrian noticed which one it was. "Ah, the accounting." Adrian picked it up, flipping through pages. "Not the most exciting reading, but important. Money is how we keep score in this world." "Is that what my father was? A score?" The question came out sharper than intended. Adrian's eyes narrowed slightly. "Your father was a debt. One that's now resolved." He set the folder down. "Why? Does seeing it written down bother you?" "Yes." It made her want to scream. It made her want to grab the nearest heavy object and smash his skull in, but Scarlett kept her expression neutral. "I'm just trying to understand how all this works." "By reading financial records?" Carlo said understanding the money helps understand the power. Adrian studied her for a long moment. He's not wrong. Money is the foundation of everything we do. Without it, power crumbles. "Is that why you married me? To protect your money?" "I married you to resolve a debt and secure an alliance." Adrian leaned against the table. The money was secondary. "What alliance?" "Your father had connections to several smaller operations. Taking you as payment sent a message that I honor agreements and value family ties. It strengthened my position with traditional-minded families who respect those things." Scarlett felt sick. "So I was propaganda. You were strategy. There's a difference. Not to me." Adrian shrugged. "Your feelings about it don't change the reality." The casual dismissal ignited something in Scarlett. Before she could think better of it, words poured out. "Did you ever consider that I might be a person? That I might have dreams and plans and a life I wanted?" "Of course you're a person, an intelligent one, based on how quickly you're absorbing this information." Adrian gestured at the folders. "But your dreams and plans were built on borrowed money and false security. Your father destroyed them long before I entered the picture. You're the one who took advantage of that. I'm the one who saw an opportunity and took it. That's how survival works." Adrian pushed off from the table. "Now, we have guests arriving in 2 hours. You should start getting ready." "Just like that? We have this conversation and you just dismiss it?" "What do you want me to say, Scarlett?" Adrian's voice hardened. "That I'm sorry. That I feel guilty. I don't. I made a business decision that benefited me. Your father made the choice to offer you. I simply accepted." "You could have said no." Why would I? He moved toward the door, then paused. You want me to be the villain so badly. Fine, I'm the villain. But don't pretend your father was innocent. He sold you. I just bought you. We're both guilty here. He left, and Scarlett stood trembling in the library, rage and grief and helplessness warring inside her. Adrian was right, and she hated him for it. Her father had sold her, had made the choice that started this nightmare. But Adrian had taken advantage, had seen a desperate man and a vulnerable woman and turned them into a transaction. They were both guilty. And her father was dead, which left only Adrian to pay. The dinner that night was similar to the previous one, but worse because it was in her home, or what passed for home now. 6 men arrived, all from different families, all wearing expensive suits and calculating expressions. They shook Adrian's hand, complimented his house, and assessed Scarlett like she was furniture. She smiled, poured drinks, made small talk about nothing, played her role perfectly while her mind worked through darker thoughts. These men trusted Adrian, worked with him, depended on him for their operations to run smoothly, which meant hurting him would hurt them too, which meant they'd protect him, even from his own wife, unless she could turn them against him. The thought took root as she watched them interact. Adrian was powerful, but power built on alliances could be dismantled by breaking those alliances. She just needed leverage, information, something that would make these men see Adrian as a threat instead of an asset. Your wife is lovely, Luca Russo said to Adrian during cocktails. He smiled at Scarlett, but his eyes were cold. Very composed for someone so new to our world. She's learning quickly, Adrian replied, his hand settling possessively on Scarlett's lower back. I'm sure she is. Women often adapt faster than men expect. Luca took a sip of his drink. Tell me, Mrs. Moretti, what do you think of your new life? Another test. Scarlett met his gaze. I think it's complicated, but I'm starting to understand the landscape. The landscape, Luca laughed. Diplomatic. Adrian, you trained her well. I didn't train her. She came this way. Even better. Luca's eyes swept over Scarlett again. Beauty and brains. A dangerous combination. Only if you're on the wrong side, Adrian said quietly. The warning was subtle but clear. Luca raised his hands in mock surrender. Of course, just making conversation. During dinner, Scarlett sat at the head of the table opposite Adrian playing hostess. The men talked business around her like she was invisible, which suited her fine. She learned more by listening than she ever would by asking questions. Shipments coming in from overseas, disputes about territory boundaries, concerns about law enforcement investigating certain operations. And underneath it all, tension. These men worked together but didn't trust each other. The alliances were pragmatic, not loyal, which meant they could be broken. The feds are sniffing around the port operations, Vincent Costello said, his voice rough. We might need to shift some containers to alternative locations. The ports are secure, Adrian replied. I have people in place. People can be bought. You know that better than anyone. My people can't. Adrian's tone left no room for argument. But if you're concerned, we can discuss alternative routes. I'm saying we should be careful. The Bianchis got sloppy last year and lost 3 months of product. I don't want to see that happen again. The conversation continued, cycling through problems and solutions, threats and opportunities. Scarlett absorbed it all, filing away details for later. After dinner, the men moved to Adrian's office for cigars and whatever business they didn't want to discuss in front of her. Scarlett excused herself, heading upstairs with instructions from Adrian to wait for him in the bedroom. She had no intention of following instructions. Once she heard the office door close, Scarlett slipped back downstairs. The house was quiet except for muffled voices behind the office door. She moved past it, heading toward a room Carlo had mentioned during their tour, Adrian's personal study, separate from his business office. The door was locked, but the lock was simple. Scarlett used a hairpin, her hand steady despite her racing heart. The lock clicked open. Inside, the study was smaller than the office, more personal. A desk with a computer, bookshelves with personal items mixed among books, a safe in the corner that she'd need more than a hairpin to crack. Scarlett moved to the desk, checking drawers. Most contained mundane items, pens, papers, charging cables. But in the bottom drawer, she found something interesting. A burner phone. She powered it on, praying it wasn't password protected. It wasn't. The phone opened directly to a messaging app. Scrolling through, Scarlett found conversations with numbers, not names. Most of the messages were vague, coded language about deliveries and schedules. But one thread made her pause. Unknown. The Hayes situation is handled. Adrian. Both of them? Unknown. Father's done. Daughter secured. Adrian. Good. Make it look random. Unknown. Always do. The dates matched. 3 weeks before the wedding. Her father had disappeared, and this message confirmed Adrian had ordered it. Scarlett's hands shook as she took photos of the messages with her own phone. Recently returned to her by Rosa with strict warnings about approved contacts only. She scrolled further, finding more incriminating conversations. Plans for shipments, orders for violence, discussions of payoffs and blackmail. This was it. Evidence, proof of Adrian's crimes that she could use. The door opened. Scarlett spun, phone still in her hand, caught. Adrian stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Behind him, the hallway was empty. He'd come alone. Looking for something? His voice was calm, too calm. Scarlett's mind raced. Lie? Confess? Run? None of them seemed viable. I wanted to understand, she said finally. You told me to learn your world, so I am. By breaking into my private study? You never said it was off limits. I shouldn't have to. Adrian stepped inside, closing the door behind him. His eyes dropped to the burner phone in her hand. What did you find? No point in lying now. Enough. Enough for what? To know what you are, what you've done. Scarlett's voice steadied with anger. You killed my father. Yes. The simple admission hit harder than denial would have. You're admitting it? Why wouldn't I? It's true. Adrian moved closer, each step deliberate. Your father was a liability. He knew too much, owed too much, and would eventually become a problem, so I eliminated the problem. He was my father. He was a degenerate gambler who sold you to save himself. He didn't deserve your loyalty. And you do? Adrian stopped a few feet away. I never asked for your loyalty, just your compliance. Well, you're not getting either anymore. Scarlett held up her phone. I have photos of these messages. Evidence. I'll take it to the police, the FBI, whoever will listen. She didn't see him move. One moment Adrian was feet away. The next, his hand wrapped around her wrist, squeezing until her fingers opened and her phone clattered to the floor. You'll do no such thing. His voice was soft, dangerous. Because the moment you walk out that door, the moment you try to contact anyone, I'll know. And then people you care about will start dying. You're threatening me. I'm promising you. Adrian's grip tightened. Jenny, your college roommate, your Aunt Maria in Florida, Mr. Patterson at the bookstore. I know where they all are, what they mean to you. And if you make me into an enemy, they pay the price. Tears burned Scarlett's eyes. You're a monster. Yes, I've told you that. He released her wrist and she stumbled back. But I'm a monster who's protected you, fed you, given you a life of luxury. The least you can do is not actively try to destroy me. You murdered my father. I eliminated a threat. There's a difference. Adrian's control cracked slightly, his voice rising. Your father wasn't innocent. He knew what he was getting into when he borrowed from me, knew the consequences. He chose to gamble with money he couldn't repay, chose to dig himself deeper, chose to offer you as payment. I just followed through. You could have let him live, taken the money some other way. I could have. But then he would have talked, would have become a liability to every family he'd borrowed from, not just me. The man was a walking disaster. Adrian ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. Killing him was mercy compared to what others would have done. Mercy, Scarlett laughed bitterly. You keep telling yourself that. I don't need to tell myself anything. I know what I am. Adrian bent down, picking up Scarlett's phone. He deleted the photos, then handed it back to her. But you need to understand what you are now. You're my wife. That means you're part of this, whether you like it or not. The moment you married me, you became complicit. I didn't choose this. No. But you're choosing how you respond to it. Adrian moved to the desk, pocketing the burner phone. You can keep fighting me, keep looking for evidence, keep planning revenge, and eventually you'll make a mistake and people will die because of it. Or what? Or you accept reality. and make the best of it. He turned to face her. I'm not going to apologize for what I am or what I've done, but I will protect you, provide for you, and treat you with respect if you do the same. Respect, Scarlett spat. You don't know the meaning of the word. I respect strength, intelligence, survival instinct. You have all three. Adrian's expression was unreadable. What I don't respect is pointless rebellion that endangers everyone around you. Scarlett wanted to argue, wanted to scream that he had no right to lecture her about endangering people when he'd built his entire life on violence. But the threat against Jenny, against her aunt, against innocent people hung in the air like poison. So what happens now? She asked quietly. Now you go upstairs, get some sleep. Tomorrow we continue as if this never happened. Adrian moved to the door, opening it. And Scarlett, this study is now off limits, truly off limits. If I find you in here again, there will be consequences. What kind of consequences? The kind you don't want to test me on. He left, and Scarlett stood alone in the study, trembling with rage and fear and helplessness. She'd found evidence, had proof of Adrian's crimes, and it meant nothing, because he held all the power, all the leverage, all the control, and she had nothing except the knowledge that her husband was a murderer, and she was trapped in his world with no way out. Scarlett returned to the bedroom, her mind numb. She changed mechanically, climbed into bed, stared at the ceiling. When Adrian came to bed an hour later, he said nothing, just lay down on his side, as far from her as the mattress allowed. The silence stretched between them, heavy with things unsaid. I hate you, Scarlett whispered into the darkness. I know, Adrian replied, but you'll learn to live with it. Will I? Everyone does eventually. Hate becomes background noise, something you carry but don't feel every moment. Is that what happened to you? Did you hate someone until it became background noise? Adrian was quiet for so long Scarlett thought he wouldn't answer. Then, yes. Who? My father. For making me into this, for leaving me no choice but to become what he built. His voice was flat, emotionless. I hated him until he died. And then I hated his memory. Now I just don't feel anything about it anymore. The confession surprised her, humanized him in a way she didn't want. I'll never stop feeling it, Scarlett said. You might, or you might not. Either way, you'll learn to function around it. Adrian shifted, the bed creaking slightly. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's another day of learning to live in your new world. Scarlett closed her eyes, but sleep didn't come. Her mind worked through what she'd learned, what she'd lost, what remained. She couldn't go to the police, couldn't run, couldn't fight him directly without risking the people she loved. But she could wait, learn, adapt, like Rosa said. And when the right moment came, when she had real power, real leverage, real options, she'd make Adrian Moretti regret the day he'd decided to buy her. That thought, cold and sharp and patient, finally let her sleep. 3 weeks passed in a strange rhythm that Scarlett both adapted to and resented. Days blurred together, breakfasts alone while Adrian worked, afternoons with Carlo learning more about the families and their operations, evenings playing hostess at dinners that all felt identical. Smile, pour drinks, stay quiet, be useful. She was learning to swim, just like Rosa said. But swimming didn't mean she'd stopped drowning. The knowledge of what Adrian had done sat in her chest like a stone, heavy and cold. Every time she looked at him, she saw her father's killer. Every time he touched her, a hand on her back at events, a brush of fingers when passing documents, her skin crawled. But she'd learned to hide it, learned to keep her face neutral, her reactions controlled, because Adrian was watching, always watching. You're getting better at this, he'd said last week, after a particularly tense dinner with the Russo family. Luca almost complimented you. That's rare. Thrilling, Scarlett had replied, and Adrian had actually smiled. A small one, brief, but real. She hated that smile, hated that some part of her had felt satisfaction at earning it. Now, standing in the library with Carlo, Scarlett tried to focus on the lesson. He was teaching her about the port operations, how containers moved, how bribes were structured, how shipments avoided customs inspections. Information that should have bored her, but didn't, because every detail was a potential weapon. The key is redundancy, Carlo explained, pointing to a chart. Multiple routes, multiple contacts, multiple payment channels. If one gets compromised, the others continue operating. Smart, Scarlett murmured. Harder to shut down. Exactly. Mr. Moretti learned early that single points of failure are dangerous. Carlo closed the folder. Which brings us to tonight. Scarlett's attention sharpened. What's tonight? A situation has developed. One of our shipments was intercepted by the Costellos. They're claiming it crossed into their territory without permission. Did it? Technically, yes, but the territory boundaries have been disputed for months. Carlo's expression was grave. Mr. Moretti is meeting with Vincent Costello tonight to resolve it. He wants you there. Scarlett frowned. Why? This sounds like actual business, not social posturing. It is business, dangerous business, which is exactly why he wants you there. I don't understand. Carlo hesitated, choosing his words carefully. Vincent Costello is volatile, violent. He's been looking for an excuse to challenge Mr. Moretti's authority. Having you present, it complicates things for him. How? Because attacking a man in front of his wife crosses certain lines, traditional lines that the older families still respect. Carlo met her eyes. You're a shield, Mrs. Moretti, whether you want to be or not. The truth of it settled over her like ice water. Adrian wasn't bringing her because he trusted her or valued her input. He was bringing her because her presence made violence less likely. And if Vincent doesn't care about traditional lines, Scarlett asked, then things get complicated very quickly. Carlo closed his briefcase, which is why Mr. Moretti wanted me to prepare you. If shooting starts, you drop to the floor immediately. Don't try to run. Don't try to help. Just get down and stay down. This is insane. This is your life now. Carlo's voice was gentle but firm. I know it's not what you chose, but it's what you have. And the faster you accept that, the better your chances of surviving it. After he left, Scarlett sat alone in the library, her hands shaking. She'd been to dinners, met criminals, learned about illegal operations. But those had felt theoretical somehow, academic. This was different. This was walking into an active conflict where bullets might fly. And Adrian wanted her there. Part of her wanted to refuse, to lock herself in the bedroom and let Adrian handle his own problems. But another part, the part that was learning to calculate, to strategize, saw an opportunity. If things went wrong tonight, if Vincent Costello did attack, Adrian would be vulnerable, distracted, maybe vulnerable enough that Scarlett could, what? Grab a gun she didn't know how to use? Run into the night with guards everywhere? Get herself killed along with him? No. But she could watch, learn, see how Adrian handled real threats, not just social maneuvering. And maybe, just maybe, she'd learn something she could use later. Rosa appeared at 6 with clothes, dark pants, a fitted blouse, low heels. Nothing flashy. Scarlett dressed mechanically while Rosa worked on her hair, pulling it back into a sleek ponytail. Carlo told you? Rosa asked quietly. About tonight? Yes. And you're still going? Do I have a choice? Rosa's hands paused. No, but I had to ask. She resumed working, her touch efficient. Stay close to Mr. Moretti. Don't let anyone separate you, and when tempers flare, remember you're not actually part of the argument. You're set dressing, invisible. Great pep talk. I'm serious. Rosa turned Scarlett to face her. Men like Vincent Costello, they look for weaknesses to exploit. Don't give him one. Don't react. Don't show fear. Just be boring. I can do boring. Good. Rosa stepped back, examining her work. You look perfect, appropriate, forgettable. Somehow, that felt like the highest compliment. Adrian was waiting in the foyer when Scarlett came downstairs. He wore all black, shirt, pants, jacket, and his expression was harder than usual. All business, all danger. Ready? He asked. Not really. Honest, I appreciate that. He offered his arm. Stay close. Don't speak unless I tell you to. If things go wrong, Carlo briefed you on what to do. Drop and stay down. Good. They walked to the car, Adrian's hand firm on her elbow. This shouldn't escalate. Vincent's posturing, testing boundaries. But he's unpredictable, so we prepare for worst case. Comforting. It's realistic. Adrian handed her into the back seat, sliding in beside her. The Costellos have been pushing limits for months. This shipment issue is just the latest excuse. Vincent wants to prove he's not afraid of me. Are you afraid of him? Adrian's laugh was short and humorless. I'm cautious of him. There's a difference. Fear makes you hesitate. Caution makes you prepared. The drive took 20 minutes, heading to a part of the city Scarlett didn't recognize. Industrial, empty. The kind of place where screams wouldn't carry. They pulled up to a warehouse, its exterior rusted and neglected. But when the car stopped, Scarlett saw men positioned on the roof, in doorways, behind corners, armed, waiting. Both sides brought backup, Adrian observed. Expected, but not encouraging. Two of Adrian's men got out first, scanning the area. Then Adrian exited, turning to offer Scarlett his hand. She took it, stepping out into the cold February night. Vincent Costello waited by the warehouse entrance, flanked by 4 men who looked like they killed people for cardio. Vincent himself was massive, 6'4", heavily muscled, with a scar running from his left eye to his jaw. He smiled when he saw Adrian, showing too many teeth. Moretti, you came. You asked for a meeting. Adrian's voice was neutral. I'm here. And you brought your pretty wife. How domestic. Vincent's eyes swept over Scarlett, lingering too long. She's prettier than the pictures suggested. Careful, Vincent. Adrian's tone dropped several degrees. Comments like that tend to make conversations shorter. Touchy. I'm just making an observation. Vincent gestured to the warehouse. Shall we? My men inside, your men outside. Keep things civilized. Your men outside too, Adrian countered. Equal numbers on both sides of that door, otherwise we talk here. Vincent's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Fine. 4 inside, rest outside. They entered the warehouse, footsteps echoing on concrete. The space was mostly empty except for a table with 2 chairs in the center, lit by a single overhead light. Theatrical. Intentional. Vincent's 4 men positioned themselves along one wall. Adrian's did the same on the opposite side. The 2 leaders faced each other across the table, and Scarlett stood slightly behind Adrian, exactly where he'd positioned her. The shipment, Vincent said without preamble. You moved it through my territory without permission. That's a violation. The route I used has been neutral for 3 years, Adrian replied. Since the Bianchis pulled out of that sector, no one's claimed it. I'm claiming it now. Retroactively. That's not how this works. Vincent leaned forward, his bulk making the chair creak. It works however I say it works. You crossed into my territory. That means you owe me. I owe you nothing. Adrian's voice was steel wrapped in silk. But I'm willing to discuss a compromise. Future shipments through that route split 50-50 on the fees. You get your percentage, I get my route. 60-40, my favor. That's not a compromise. That's extortion. Call it what you want. Vincent smiled again. Those are my terms. Scarlett watched the exchange, noting how the men along the walls tensed, hands drifting toward weapons, breathing patterns changing. This was a powder keg, and both leaders were holding matches. 50-50, Adrian repeated. Final offer. 60-40. Or we settle this another way. And what way would that be? Vincent's hand moved toward his jacket. Adrian didn't flinch, but Scarlett felt him coil, ready to move. The warehouse went silent, everyone waiting. Then Vincent pulled out a folder, not a gun. He tossed it on the table. The other way is I go to the commission with proof you've been skimming percentages from joint operations. Proof that'll get you sanctioned, maybe worse. Adrian opened the folder, scanning the documents inside. His expression didn't change, but Scarlett saw his fingers tighten slightly on the paper's edge. Where did you get these? Adrian asked quietly. Does it matter? Point is, I have them. And unless you agree to my terms, the commission sees them tomorrow. This was blackmail. Straight up blackmail. And from the tension in Adrian's shoulders, it was working. These are fabricated, Adrian said, but his voice lacked conviction. Maybe, maybe not. But they look real enough that the commission will investigate, and investigations tend to uncover all sorts of interesting things. Vincent leaned back, confident. 60-40, Moretti. Take it or watch your empire crumble. Scarlett's mind raced. If Adrian agreed, he'd look weak. Other families would see it as Vincent successfully challenging him, and more challenges would follow. But if he refused, the investigation could destroy him. Either way, Vincent won. Unless, may I see those? Scarlett heard herself say. Every head turned toward her. Adrian's expression flickered with surprise. Vincent's with annoyance. This is business, Vincent said dismissively. Not for wives to... I studied accounting at Northwestern, Scarlett interrupted, keeping her voice level. Before I married Adrian, financial documents were kind of my thing. It was a lie. She'd studied literature, but these men didn't know that, and confidence sold lies better than truth. Adrian hesitated, then pushed the folder toward her. Take a look. Scarlett picked it up, scanning the documents with what she hoped looked like professional assessment. They were financial records, showing discrepancies between reported percentages and actual transfers. On the surface, they looked damning, but Scarlett noticed something. The dates were recent, last 6 months, but the document formatting was inconsistent. Different fonts, different margin settings, like they'd been compiled from multiple sources and assembled recently. These are forgeries, she said, injecting certainty into her voice. Excuse me? Vincent's voice was dangerous. Look at the formatting. Document 3 uses Calibri font, while documents 1 and 2 use Times New Roman. The margin settings are different. The date stamps have different formatting codes. Scarlett pointed to specific spots, making it up as she went. These weren't created by the same system. Someone compiled them from different sources and tried to make them look cohesive. She had no idea if any of that was true, but it sounded good, technical enough to be believable, specific enough to create doubt. Adrian picked up the documents, examining them with new eyes. She's right. Look at the metadata stamps. There were no metadata stamps visible, but Vincent wouldn't know that. This is bullshit, Vincent growled. Those documents are legitimate. Then you won't mind if I have my forensic accountant verify them before we involve the commission, Adrian said smoothly. If they're real, you have your leverage. If they're forged, and they are, then we have a different conversation about who's trying to manipulate whom. Vincent's face darkened. You calling me a liar? I'm saying your information is bad. Whether you knew that or not remains to be seen. Adrian stood, and Scarlett quickly stepped back. Here's my counter. 50-50 split on the root fees. You drop this forgery nonsense, and we both forget this meeting happened. And if I don't agree, then I go to the commission with proof you tried to blackmail me with fabricated documents. Wonder how they'll feel about that. The standoff stretched. Vincent's men tensed. Adrian's did the same. Scarlett's heart hammered, waiting for the first gunshot. Then Vincent laughed, loud, genuine, breaking the tension like shattering glass. You got balls, Moretti. I'll give you that. He stood, extending his hand. 50-50. Deal. Adrian shook it, his expression carefully neutral. Deal. And your wife? Vincent's eyes found Scarlett again. She's smarter than she looks. Dangerous quality in a woman. Only to people who underestimate her, Adrian replied. They left the warehouse without incident, though Scarlett felt eyes on her back until they were in the car and moving. The moment the doors closed, the tension drained from her body, leaving her shaking. That was reckless, Adrian said quietly. It worked. It could have gotten you killed. Vincent doesn't like being made to look foolish. He made himself look foolish bringing fake documents. Scarlett turned to face him. I just pointed it out. Were they actually fake? Or were you bluffing? Does it matter? You backed my play. Adrian studied her for a long moment. You're right. I did. Something shifted in his expression. That was smart thinking, quick, and you sold it well enough that Vincent believed you. I studied literature, not accounting. I have no idea if anything I said was accurate. It wasn't. Metadata stamps aren't visible on printed documents. Adrian's lips twitched. But it sounded convincing. That's what mattered. They drove in silence for several minutes. Then Adrian spoke again, his voice thoughtful. You saved me tonight. You know that? I saved myself. If you'd agreed to his terms, you would have looked weak. Weak men don't last long in your world. And I'm tied to you now, whether I like it or not. Scarlett stared out the window. Your survival is my survival. Pragmatic. Realistic. There's a difference. Adrian smiled at that. I'm starting to see why Carlo's been speaking so highly of your progress. Carlo talks about me? Every day. Says you're a natural at reading power dynamics, understanding the chessboard. Adrian's hand settled on the seat between them, not touching her but close. He's not wrong. Scarlett didn't respond. Accepting the compliment felt like accepting her role in this world, and she wasn't ready for that. But she also couldn't deny the rush she'd felt in that warehouse. The thrill of thinking fast, playing the game, and winning. Maybe that's what scared her most. Not that she was trapped in Adrian's world, but that part of her was starting to understand it, adapt to it, become part of it. When they arrived home, Adrian surprised her by following her upstairs instead of disappearing into his office. "What are you doing?" Scarlett asked as he closed the bedroom door behind them. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About what happened tonight." Adrian loosened his tie, his movements deliberate. "You stepped into a dangerous situation, took a risk, and it paid off. But it also changed things." "Changed things how?" "The other families will hear about this. About how my wife challenged Vincent Costello and won." Adrian turned to face her. "They'll see you differently now. Not as decoration. As someone with teeth." "Is that a problem?" "It could be. It makes you more valuable, but also more of a target." He moved closer, his expression serious. "Vincent's ego won't let this go. He'll come after me eventually, trying to prove he's not weak. And when he does, you'll be in the crossfire." Scarlett's stomach tightened. "You're saying I shouldn't have spoken up?" "No, I'm saying you need to understand the consequences of speaking up." Adrian's voice was firm. "In that warehouse, you proved you're smart, capable, dangerous in your own way. But danger attracts danger. People will test you now, push you, try to use you against me. So what am I supposed to do? Go back to being silent and decorative? No. That ship has sailed." Adrian ran a hand through his hair. "I'm saying be careful. Think before you act. And trust that I'll protect you, but I can't do it if you're constantly taking risks. Like you can talk. You walk into danger every day. It's my world. I understand the risks." His eyes held hers. "You're still learning, and mistakes in this world get people killed." The truth of it hung between them. Scarlett wanted to argue, to tell him she didn't need his protection, but that would be a lie. She'd survived tonight because Adrian had backed her play. If he'd disagreed, if he'd undermined her in front of Vincent, things would have gone very differently. "Fine," she said finally. "I'll be careful." "Thank you." Adrian moved to his side of the bed, sitting on the edge. "For what it's worth, what you did tonight was impressive. Carlo was right about you. Don't get used to it. I'm not doing this for you." "I know. You're doing it for yourself, for survival." He looked at her, and something in his expression softened. "But maybe that's enough." Later, lying in the darkness with Adrian's breathing steady beside her, Scarlett replayed the night in her mind. She'd stepped into his world fully tonight, not as a passenger or decoration, but as a participant, and she'd won. The realization should have disgusted her, should have made her feel complicit in everything she hated about this life. Instead, it made her feel powerful. For the first time since the wedding, she'd had agency, control, the ability to affect outcomes instead of just enduring them. And that power, small as it was, tasted addictive. The next morning, Adrian was already gone when Scarlett woke. But there was a note on his pillow, written in sharp, precise handwriting. "Meeting with the commission this afternoon. They want to discuss last night. You should come. A." Scarlett stared at the note. The commission was the ruling body of the families, the highest authority in this criminal world. Adrian was bringing her to face them, to prove what she'd done was legitimate, probably, or to put her in the line of fire if things went wrong. Either way, it was a test, and Scarlett was done failing test. She dressed carefully, choosing a charcoal suit that was professional but not flashy. Rosa helped with her hair, pulling it back into a style that looked severe, powerful. "You're going to the commission," Rosa said. It wasn't a question. "Apparently." "That's significant. Wives don't usually attend those meetings." "I'm getting the impression I'm not a usual wife." Rosa smiled slightly. "No, you're definitely not." She stepped back, examining Scarlett. "You look like someone who belongs there. That's good. Confidence matters with those men." "Any advice?" "Same as always. Observe more than you speak. Respect the hierarchy. And remember that everyone in that room has killed people." Rosa's expression turned serious. Don't let them see fear. They smell it like blood in water. The commission met in a private room at a club in downtown Chicago. Old money, old power, the kind of place that looked respectable on the surface while hosting monsters in its private spaces. Adrian met Scarlett in the lobby, his expression unreadable. Ready? As I'll ever be. They're going to ask about last night, about the documents, about your qualifications to assess them. Adrian's voice was low. Stick to what you said at the warehouse. Confidence sells lies better than truth. I know. They entered a wood-paneled room where 5 men sat around a table. Scarlett recognized Salvatore Moretti, Adrian's uncle. The others were strangers, but their ages and bearing suggested they were the heads of the other major families. Adrian, Mrs. Moretti. Salvatore gestured to chairs. Please sit. They did. Scarlett kept her spine straight, hands folded in her lap, expression neutral. We've heard interesting reports about last night's meeting with Vincent Costello, an older man said. He had white hair and cold blue eyes. We'd like to hear your version. Adrian explained the situation, the shipment, the territory dispute, Vincent's blackmail attempt. He spoke clearly, factually, without emotion. When he finished, the white-haired man turned to Scarlett. And you determined the documents were forged? Yes, sir. Based on what expertise? Here it was, the moment where her lie would either hold or crumble. I studied financial analysis at Northwestern, Scarlett said, keeping her voice steady. Document authenticity was part of the curriculum. The inconsistencies in formatting, font usage, and structural elements suggested the documents were compiled from multiple sources, not generated from a single accounting system. It was mostly bullshit, but she delivered it with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what she was talking about. The white-haired man exchanged glances with the others. And you're certain they were forgeries? I'm certain they weren't authentic. Whether Vincent knew that or was given bad information himself, I can't say. Diplomatic answer, Salvatore murmured. She's smart, another man added. Doesn't overreach her conclusion. They talked among themselves for several minutes, their voices low. Scarlett sat still, waiting, her heart pounding, but her face calm. Finally, Salvatore spoke. We've decided to accept your assessment. Vincent will be reminded about the consequences of bringing false accusations to territorial disputes. Relief flooded through Scarlett, though she didn't let it show. However, the white-haired man continued, this situation raises questions about your role, Mrs. Moretti. Wives typically don't involve themselves in business matters. My wife has proven herself valuable, Adrian said before Scarlett could respond. She has skills that benefit our operations. I see no reason to waste them. Unusual, one of the other men muttered. But not forbidden, Salvatore pointed out. Our traditions are important, but they're not inflexible. If Adrian believes his wife can contribute and she's proven capable, why not allow it? The debate continued, flowing around Scarlett like she wasn't there. These men were discussing her future, her role, her value, and she had no voice in it. Finally, they reached a decision. Mrs. Moretti may continue attending business meetings at her husband's discretion, the white-haired man announced, but she answers to Adrian. Her actions reflect on him. Any mistakes she makes will be his responsibility. Understood, Adrian said. They were dismissed. Walking out of that room, Scarlett felt something shift. She'd been tested by the highest authority in this world and passed. She had permission now, limited, conditional, but real, to be more than just decoration. You did well, Adrian said once they were in the car. They were impressed. They were tolerating me because you vouched for me. Same thing, in their world. He looked at her. But you held your own, didn't crack under pressure. That matters. Scarlett stared out the window, processing. A month ago, she was working at a bookstore and planning graduate school. Now she was lying to criminal boards and playing power games with mobsters. And winning. What happens now, she asked. Now you continue learning. Continue proving yourself. Adrian's voice was thoughtful. You've earned a seat at the table, Scarlett. Small seat, conditional, but it's there. What you do with it is up to you. The weight of that settled over her. Power, agency, choice, all things she'd been denied since the wedding. Now they were being offered, wrapped in danger and blood and moral compromise. She should refuse, should reject this world and everything in it. But as the car drove through Chicago's streets, Scarlett realized something that terrified her. She didn't want to refuse. She wanted more. Wanted to understand this world completely, master it, use it, because power was the only thing these men respected. And if she wanted to survive, really survive, not just exist, she needed power. Even if it meant becoming something she'd never intended to be. Even if it meant becoming like them. The call came at 2 in the morning, 3 months after the commission meeting. Scarlett woke to Adrian's phone buzzing insistently, his voice sharp and cold as he answered. When? A pause. How many? Another pause. Longer. I'm on my way. He was out of bed before the call ended, pulling on clothes with mechanical efficiency. Scarlett sat up, already knowing this wasn't a normal business emergency. What happened? The warehouse on 5th. Someone hit it. Took out 4 of my men and made off with 2 months of inventory. Adrian's voice was flat, controlled, but Scarlett heard the rage underneath. Vincent Costello's making his move. You don't know it was him. I know. He grabbed his gun from the nightstand safe, checking the magazine. This has his signature all over it. He's been waiting for the right moment. Apparently tonight was it. Scarlett threw back the covers. I'm coming with you. No. You brought me to the warehouse meeting with Vincent. You've brought me to a dozen other dangerous situations. Why is this different? Because this isn't a negotiation. This is war. Adrian turned to face her, his expression hard. People are dead, Scarlett. More will die before sunrise. You need to stay here where it's safe. Safe? Scarlett stood, anger flaring. There's no such thing as safe in your world. You've made that clear enough. So either I'm part of this or I'm not. You can't keep switching depending on your mood. Adrian's jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he'd argue. Then he grabbed a second gun from the safe, handing it to her. You know how to use this? No. Then you're learning on the way. He pulled on his jacket. Stay behind me. Do exactly what I say. And if I tell you to run, you run. Understood? Scarlett took the gun, feeling its weight, cold, heavy, real. Understood. The drive to the warehouse took 15 minutes through empty Chicago streets. Adrian drove fast, making calls the entire way, mobilizing men, issuing orders, planning retaliation. How many did we lose? Scarlett asked quietly. 4 dead. 2 injured. Adrian's hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel. One of the dead was Marco's nephew, 23 years old. This was his first month on the job. The detail humanized the loss in a way numbers couldn't. 23. Barely older than Scarlett. Someone's nephew. Someone's son. I'm sorry, she said. Sorry doesn't bring him back. Adrian's voice was bitter. But making Vincent pay might make his family feel better. They pulled up to the warehouse, or what was left of it. Fire had consumed one section, black smoke still rising. Emergency vehicles blocked the street, but Adrian's men were already talking to the responders, handling things the way criminals handled things when they didn't want police involvement. Salvatore Moretti stood near the entrance, his face grim. When he saw Adrian, he moved to intercept. It was professional, Salvatore said without preamble. Military precision, in and out in under 4 minutes. They knew exactly where the inventory was stored. Inside information, Adrian said. Has to be. Question is who? Scarlett followed them inside, stepping over debris and water from fire hoses. The warehouse was a disaster. Shelving collapsed, containers ripped open, blood on the concrete floor. She stopped at one of the blood pools, staring. This morning it had been a person. Now it was just evidence to be cleaned up. Mrs. Moretti. Rosa appeared beside her, seemingly from nowhere. You shouldn't be here. Adrian brought me. Then Adrian's an idiot. Rosa took her arm, guiding her away from the blood. Come on, you can observe from over there. They moved to a corner where several other men were examining security footage on a laptop. Scarlett watched the screen, seeing the attack play out. 4 vehicles, 12 men. Coordinated movements. They'd known exactly what they were doing. Can you identify any of them? Adrian asked, appearing behind her. Masks. All of them. The man at the laptop rewound the footage. But there, see the one on the left? He's favoring his right leg. Old injury, probably. Marco. Adrian's voice cut across the warehouse. You know anyone in Vincent's crew with a leg injury? Marco appeared, his face twisted with grief and rage. Tommy Brescia. Took a bullet to the knee 2 years ago. Never healed right. Find him. Adrian's voice was ice. And anyone else who was here tonight, I want them alive. We're going to have a conversation about respect. The men dispersed, moving with purpose. Scarlett felt the energy shift, from investigation to action. They were going hunting. You should go home, Adrian said, turning to her. This part gets ugly. I've seen ugly before. Not like this. He studied her face. When we find these men, I'm going to hurt them, badly. I'm going to make them scream, and then I'm going to kill them. That's not something you need to witness. Scarlett met his eyes. You're right. I don't need to witness it, but I'm going to anyway. Why? To prove something? To understand. She kept her voice steady. You keep telling me this is my world now, that I need to accept it. Well, I can't accept what I don't fully understand, and I don't understand the violence yet. Not really. I've seen the aftermath, but not the act itself. Adrian's expression darkened. Trust me, you don't want to understand it. Maybe not, but I need to. They stared at each other, a battle of wills. Finally, Adrian looked away. Fine, but when you have nightmares about this, remember you insisted. They found Tommy Brescia 3 hours later, hiding in a girlfriend's apartment on the south side. Adrian's men dragged him to an abandoned building that looked like it had been used for this purpose before. The bloodstains on the concrete suggested as much. Scarlett stood in the corner, Rosa beside her, while Adrian's men chained Tommy to a chair. The man was crying, begging, promising he'd talk if they just didn't hurt him. You're going to talk either way, Adrian said, his voice conversational. The question is how much you suffer first. He nodded to Marco. What followed was systematic brutality, punches, kicks, tools Scarlett didn't want to identify. Tommy screamed, broke, gave up names, locations, details about Vincent's plans. Scarlett watched it all. Forced herself not to look away. This was the reality of Adrian's world, the ugly truth beneath the expensive suits and political maneuvering. This was how power was maintained, through fear, through pain, through the willingness to do what others wouldn't. When Tommy finally passed out, Adrian stepped back, his shirt splattered with blood that wasn't his. He told us everything, Marco said, breathing hard. Vincent's planning to hit the port operations next, wants to cripple your revenue streams. Then we hit him first. Adrian pulled out his phone, making a call. Luca, it's Adrian. We need to talk about Vincent Costello. The conversation was brief. When Adrian hung up, he looked at Salvatore. Luca's in. The Russos will support our move against Vincent. He's been stepping on their territory too. What about the Bianchis and Salvatores? Salvatore asked. They'll stay neutral, as long as we keep it clean and quick. Adrian finally looked at Scarlett, really looked at her. You okay? Was she? She'd just watched a man be tortured, should be horrified, should be running for the exits, screaming for police. Instead, she felt numb, detached, like she was watching from a distance. I'm fine, she said. You're not, but you will be. Adrian moved toward her, stopping a few feet away. This is what I meant when I said my world is sick. This is the reality of what I do, what I am. I know. Do you? Because there's knowing intellectually and knowing in your bones. He gestured at Tommy's unconscious form. That man helped kill 4 of mine, including a 23-year-old kid whose only crime was being in the wrong place. So I hurt him, and I'll hurt Vincent, and I won't lose sleep over it. I'm not asking you to justify it. Then what are you asking? Scarlett considered the question. What was she asking? For him to be different, for this world to be different, for some moral clarity that didn't exist? I'm asking you to let me choose, she said finally. You forced me into this marriage, into this life, but you don't get to decide what parts of it I see, what parts I participate in. That's my choice. Adrian studied her for a long moment, then he nodded slowly. All right, your choice. But remember you made it when the nightmares start. They went after Vincent Costello 2 nights later. Not a meeting, not a negotiation. An assault. Adrian had gathered support from the Russo family, plus loyalists from the other families who were tired of Vincent's aggression. 20 men total, heavily armed, moving on Vincent's main facility. Scarlett insisted on coming. Adrian tried to refuse, but she'd meant what she said about choice, so he gave her a bulletproof vest, stationed her in one of the rear vehicles with Rosa and 2 guards, and made her promise to stay in the car. She promised. Lying was getting easier. The attack happened fast. Adrian's men moved in coordinated teams, breaching doors, securing rooms. Gunfire erupted, sharp cracks that echoed off buildings. Scarlett watched from the car, her heart hammering. Then she saw Vincent. He was running from a side entrance, heading for a black SUV with 2 of his men. If he escaped, this would all be for nothing. He'd regroup, retaliate, and the violence would escalate. "He's getting away," Scarlett said. "Stay in the car," her guard ordered. But Vincent was almost to his vehicle, almost free. And Scarlett remembered what Adrian had said about survival, about doing what others wouldn't, about power coming from action, not passivity. She grabbed the gun from the guard's holster. He was watching the building, not her, and was out of the car before anyone could stop her. "Mrs. Moretti!" Rosa's voice, sharp with fear. Scarlett ran toward Vincent, her legs carrying her before her brain could catch up. He saw her coming, his eyes widening with surprise, then contempt. "Adrian's little wife," he sneered, reaching for his own gun. "Plain soldier." Scarlett raised the weapon, hands shaking but grip firm. She'd never fired a gun before, didn't know if she could hit anything. But Vincent was 10 feet away, and 10 feet was hard to miss. "Don't," she said. Vincent laughed. "Or what? You'll shoot me? You don't have the spine." She pulled the trigger. The recoil shocked her, nearly knocking her backward. The shot went wide, missing Vincent but shattering the SUV's window behind him. Vincent's expression changed. No more contempt. Now it was calculation. He raised his own weapon. Scarlett fired again. And again. Not aiming, just pulling the trigger, her hand steadier now with desperation rather than skill. One of the shots connected. Vincent's shoulder jerked back, blood blooming across his shirt. He stumbled, dropping his gun. Before he could recover, Adrian was there. He'd come from the building, moving fast, his own weapon trained on Vincent. "Stay down," Adrian ordered. Vincent collapsed to his knees, clutching his shoulder. His men had scattered, leaving him alone. Adrian looked at Scarlett, his expression unreadable. "I told you to stay in the car." He was getting away. "So you decided to shoot him." "I decided to stop him." Scarlett's hands were shaking now, adrenaline crashing. "Did it work?" Adrian's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Yeah, it worked." He turned back to Vincent, crouching to eye level. "You came after my men, my business, my wife. That was a mistake." "Kill me and start a war," Vincent gasped. "War's already started. You just lost it." Adrian stood, looking at Marco, who'd appeared beside him. "Take him to the warehouse, same one we used for Tommy. Make sure he understands the cost of challenging me." "Wait," Scarlett heard herself speak. "Don't kill him." Everyone turned to stare at her. "What?" Adrian's voice was sharp. "Don't kill him, it's too easy." Scarlett moved closer, looking down at Vincent. "You wanted to break Adrian's power, prove he was weak. Killing you makes you a martyr, but letting you live, broken and defeated, that proves he's strong enough to show mercy. That's real power." The silence stretched. Then Salvatore started laughing. "The girl's smart," he said. "She's absolutely right. Dead, Vincent becomes a rallying point for his family. Alive and humiliated, he becomes a warning." Adrian considered, his eyes on Scarlett. "You sure about this?" "He shot first. I defended myself and stopped him from escaping." "That's self-defense, not murder." Scarlett forced her voice to stay steady. "And it sends a message. You don't need to kill everyone who challenges you. Just break them enough that others don't try." Adrian studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "All right, we do it your way." He turned to Marco. "Take him. Make sure he survives, but make sure he never forgets what happens when you come after me." They dragged Vincent away, his screams echoing as they disappeared into a vehicle. Adrian moved to Scarlett, taking the gun from her hands. "You fired 6 shots. 3 went wide. 1 hit the car. 1 hit his shoulder. The last one," he examined the weapon, "jammed. Lucky for you, because you were aiming at his head on that one." "I wasn't aiming anywhere. I was just trying to stop him." "You stopped him all right." Adrian's expression was complex, pride mixed with concern, mixed with something else Scarlett couldn't identify. "You also just crossed a line." There's no going back from pulling the trigger. I know. Do you? Because most people, they fire their first shot and they break. They realize what they're capable of and it destroys them. Scarlett looked at her hands. They'd stopped shaking. I'm not most people. No. Adrian's voice was quiet. You're really not. The aftermath took weeks to settle. Vincent Costello survived, but barely. His family, seeing him broken and defeated, forced him to retire. His younger brother took over and immediately sued for peace, offering concessions to avoid further conflict. The commission reviewed the situation and ruled in Adrian's favor. Self-defense. Proportional response. Well within acceptable boundaries. Scarlett's role in stopping Vincent became legend. The wife who'd stepped into the line of fire to protect her husband's interests. Women in their world didn't do that. But Scarlett had. You're famous, Jenny said over lunch 2 months later. It was their first meeting since the wedding, carefully arranged and monitored, but Jenny was alive and safe. I heard stories. People say you shot Vincent Costello. I shot at him, only hit him once. Scarlett sipped her coffee, noting the fear in Jenny's eyes. Are you afraid of me now? Should I be? I don't know. Are you? Jenny was quiet for a moment. I'm afraid of what you've become, but I'm not afraid you'll hurt me. That counts for something, right? I hope so. Scarlett set down her cup. I'm still me, Jen, just different. Different how? How could she explain? That she'd learned to navigate a world of violence and power? That she'd discovered she was good at it? That pulling the trigger hadn't destroyed her like it should have? I'm surviving, Scarlett said finally, in a situation I never chose but can't escape, so I'm making it work. By becoming like them? By becoming strong enough that they can't hurt me. Jenny reached across the table, taking Scarlett's hand. Just don't lose yourself completely, okay? Because the woman I knew, she wouldn't have been okay with any of this. Maybe that woman was naive. Maybe she needed to change to survive. Maybe, but change doesn't have to mean losing your soul. After Jenny left, Scarlett sat alone in the cafe, her friend's words echoing. Had she lost her soul? She'd watched torture, participated in violence, lied to authorities. She'd become complicit in Adrian's world, not just a passenger, but an active participant. But what choice did she have? The cage had always been there. She'd just learned to move within it, and movement was better than paralysis. That night, she found Adrian in his study, the one she was now allowed to enter. He looked up when she entered, setting aside whatever he'd been working on. We need to talk, Scarlett said. About? About us. About this. She gestured between them. What are we doing? Adrian leaned back in his chair. You'll have to be more specific. I pulled a trigger to protect you. I've lied for you. I've learned your world and adapted to it, but I still don't know what we are to each other. We're married. That's a legal status, not a relationship. Scarlett moved into the room, sitting across from him. I know you killed my father. You know I know. We've never actually addressed it. Adrian's expression didn't change. What do you want me to say? I want you to tell me why. Scarlett's voice was steady. Not the business reasons. The real reason. Why him? Why that way? Why that? Adrian was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was measured. Your father borrowed from 6 different families. He knew things. Shipment schedules, meeting locations, financial details. He was a security risk. And when people started asking questions, demanding their money, he started talking, not to police, but to other criminals, trading information for breathing room. He was desperate. He was dangerous. So the families got together and decided he needed to be eliminated. I volunteered to handle it because I saw an opportunity. Adrian's eyes met hers. I could kill him and take the debt. Or I could marry you, gain the political capital of honoring his family ties, and still eliminate the threat. The second option benefited me more. So you killed him at our wedding, in front of everyone? No. I had him killed 3 weeks before the wedding. The man who walked you down the aisle was already dying. The shooters at the cathedral, they weren't after me. They were finishing the job. The bullet your father took was always meant for him. The truth hit like a physical blow. Her father had been a dead man walking at her wedding, had known he was dying. That's why he'd looked so broken, so defeated. You let me think it was random, Scarlett said quietly. I let you think what you needed to think to survive. Adrian's voice was unapologetic. The truth would have destroyed you. You needed time to adapt, to learn, to become strong enough to handle it. And now I'm strong enough? Now you pulled a trigger without hesitation. Now you understand how this world works. Now you're capable of hearing the truth and not shattering. Adrian stood, moving to the window. Your father was weak. He made choices that got him killed. But those choices also brought you here, to me, to this life. Maybe that's not what you wanted, but it's what you got. Scarlett absorbed this, feeling the weight of it settle. Her father had been executed over weeks, not minutes, had suffered, had known his death was coming. She should hate Adrian more for this, should want revenge. But instead she felt something else. Understanding, maybe, or acceptance. Her father had played a dangerous game and lost. Adrian had simply been the one holding the cards. I'm not going to forgive you, she said. I don't need forgiveness. I need your partnership. Adrian turned to face her. These past months, you've proven yourself valuable, not just as decoration or political capital, but as someone who can think, adapt, and act. That's rare. Useful. So I'm an asset. You're my wife, which in this world means you're my partner, my equal, if you choose to be. He moved closer. I'm offering you real power, Scarlett, not the illusion of it. Actual decision-making authority, joint control of operations, a voice that matters. In exchange for what? Your loyalty, your commitment, your acceptance that this is your life now and there's no going back. Scarlett stood, moving to face him. They were close now, closer than they'd been since the wedding. She could see details, the scar on his jaw, the flecks of amber in his dark eyes, the tension in his shoulders. If I accept this, she said slowly, if I become your true partner, then things change. No more secrets, no more treating me like I'm fragile, no more deciding what I can and can't handle. Agreed. And I want to say in the violence. I won't participate in unnecessary cruelty. What happened to Tommy, to Vincent, that was deserved. But I won't watch innocent people suffer. Define innocent. You know what I mean. Civilians. People who aren't part of this world. They're off limits. Adrian considered this. That's a dangerous line to draw. Then we'll navigate it together, as partners. All right. He extended his hand. Partners. Scarlett looked at his hand. Taking it meant accepting everything. The violence, the corruption, the blood on both their hands. It meant choosing this life, not just enduring it. But it also meant power, agency, the ability to shape outcomes instead of just surviving them. She took his hand. Partners. Adrian pulled her closer, his other hand coming up to cup her jaw. For the first time since their interrupted wedding kiss, he leaned in. Scarlett didn't pull away. The kiss was careful. Testing. Not passionate, but not cold either. It was the kiss of two people who'd fought and bled and survived together, who'd become allies despite themselves. When they pulled apart, Adrian's expression was softer than she'd ever seen it. I can't promise you happiness, he said quietly. This world doesn't allow for it. But I can promise you power, protection, a life that matters. That's not nothing, Scarlett replied. No, it's not. 6 months later, Scarlett stood in the warehouse where Tommy Brescia had been tortured, watching as workers converted it into a legitimate business. A front, obviously, but also a functioning operation that would employ people from the neighborhood. Her idea, her project. Adrian had given her control of several business ventures, teaching her how to balance legitimate and illegal operations. She was learning the financial side of the empire, understanding how money moved and power accumulated. You're good at this, Carlo said, reviewing the renovation plans beside her. Better than Mr. Moretti expected. He didn't expect much. He expected you to fail, to crack under the pressure, to run. Carlo smiled. Instead, you thrived. That's rare. Rosa appeared with coffee, handing one to Scarlett. The contractors say they'll be finished ahead of schedule. Under budget, too. Good. Put the savings toward the community center Adrian approved. Scarlett sipped her coffee, surveying their work. If we're going to operate in this neighborhood, we might as well make it better. Unusual philosophy for someone in our world, Rosa observed. I'm an unusual person. After they left, Scarlett walked through the empty warehouse, her footsteps echoing. The space had seen violence, blood, suffering. Now it would create jobs, provide opportunities, not redemption. Nothing could redeem what happened here, but maybe purpose. A different kind of power. Her phone buzzed. Adrian. "Where are you?" he asked. "The warehouse, checking on renovations." "Come home. We have dinner with the commission tonight. Need to prepare." "I'll be there in an hour." She hung up, taking one last look around. Home. Funny how that word had changed meaning. The mansion wasn't home because it was comfortable or welcoming. It was home because it was where she'd claimed power, where she'd stopped being a victim and started being something else, something dangerous, something useful, something that survived. Jenny had asked if she'd lost her soul. Scarlett still didn't have an answer. Maybe she had. Maybe survival in Adrian's world required it. Maybe the woman she'd been had to die so this new version could live. Or maybe souls were more resilient than people thought. Maybe you could do terrible things, make impossible choices, compromise every principle you'd once held, and still retain some essential piece of yourself. Scarlett hoped so, because she'd crossed too many lines to go back. Shot a man, enabled violence, become complicit in a criminal empire. The old Scarlett Hayes would have been horrified. But the new Scarlett Moretti, because she'd started thinking of herself that way, accepting the name if not everything it represented, understood that survival wasn't pretty, wasn't noble, wasn't the story you told yourself about who you were. It was the choice you made every morning to wake up and face another day, to adapt instead of break, to find power in powerlessness and build something from nothing. Adrian had taken everything from her, her father, her freedom, her innocence. But in taking, he'd also given her something she'd never had before, the opportunity to become more than she'd imagined, stronger, harder, capable of things that would have destroyed the woman she used to be. Whether that was worth the cost, Scarlett didn't know. Maybe she'd never know, but she'd made her choice, taken his hand, become his partner in this twisted empire they'd built together from debt and blood and desperation. And if that made her a monster like him, then maybe monsters weren't born. Maybe they were made. Forged in fire and violence and impossible situations where every option was terrible and survival was the only victory that mattered. Scarlett left the warehouse, stepping into the cold Chicago afternoon. The city sprawled around her, millions of people living ordinary lives, unaware of the criminal empire operating in shadows, unaware of the woman who'd learned to navigate those shadows and claim them as her own. She got in her car, her own now, not borrowed, with a driver who answered to her, and headed home. To Adrian. To dinner with the commission. To another night playing her role in this dangerous game. But it wasn't just a role anymore. It was her life, her choice, her power. And maybe that was enough. Maybe survival in the end wasn't about escaping the cage. It was about learning to move within it so well that you forgot the bars were there. About finding freedom in constraint and power in submission. About becoming something new from the ashes of what you'd been. The old Scarlett Hayes had died the day her father gave her away. The new Scarlett Moretti had been born in gunfire and blood and impossible choices. And she would survive, not despite the darkness, but because of it. Because she'd learned to stop fighting what she couldn't change and start shaping what she could. That was the real lesson Adrian had taught her, though he'd never said it explicitly. Power wasn't about control. It was about adaptation. About becoming what the situation required, about surviving long enough to see another sunrise. And Scarlett would survive, no matter what it cost, no matter what she had to become. Because in the end, that's all any of them could do. Survive, adapt, endure. And maybe, if they were lucky, find some twisted version of peace in the chaos they'd created. That was her life now. Her truth, her choice. And she would own it completely. Until the day she died.